Okay. We're going to call the meeting to order. Today is a special meeting. It's August 9th, 2023 at 6 p.m. We will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Director McVeigh, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, starting at the end.
Jerry Lee.
Scott McVeigh.
Ann Leader. Beverly Fickus. Staff.
General Manager Paul Kelly and Admin Assistant Kayla Fox.
And super.
I was going to introduce our super volunteer, Emily Rankin, but that's going to be for 6A items.
Well, I put my name down now.
So currently we have open time. Is there any input from the public for items that are not on the agenda?
I just want to give you guys a little heads up, little footnote. So Beverly sent in 2 pages of comments and whatnot, and so some of those I already changed in the computer. So when we come to a policy, if I can just, before you guys start discussing it, let you know it's already been changed, and maybe that'll save a little bit of time. And also I wanted to let you guys know on this cover of each one that says last amendment date, where the date is, I have now gone back and added ordinance number blah 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 if they've had an ordinance, so that there is a referral there for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. Consent agenda, we have none for this special meeting, so we'll go right into old business, new business, and we have our policies and procedures, discussion action.
Thank you. Madam Chair, and to the board, just as a reminder, this is a special meeting for the Planning and Steering Committee items. So we have this section set up similar to a Planning and Steering Committee, which would be policies and procedures and then plans. We're not going to do much on the plan side, but that's listed at the end. Our super volunteer, Emily, has already mentioned a couple items, but one thing I want to just mention in your packet, one of the new things on all of our policies is to have this sort of a cover that has what kind of document it is, who's administering it, date it's approved. We're going to add in ordinance numbers, and then when it would be up for another review. There's also, there's just, in particular, the general administrative policy has all of the previous comments and edits. We think we've captured them all, but this one primarily has, as mentioned in the memo, putting, the descriptions on the standing committees, modifying those, the community membership of the committees, a little note in there that officers of the board can fill temporary vacant committee positions. We have an ad hoc committee item in there to have specific purpose and duration, try to handle the maybe transition if there's a need for maybe a personnel committee, or there's other examples we're talking more about of what a specific committee would be for. We have in there the thing about minutes being action minutes, and then an updated records retention schedule. I do want to mention that on this long list of items, some of them should be fairly quick to go through, but I do mention that there are many of them that were previously approved by ordinance, and just in the last couple of days, Emily found the ordinances that they were approved on. And so at one time I had hoped that we could actually approve them here because they're part of the special meeting. The general administrative policies, just kind of giving you a heads up, I think that's one. If you make edits and you think they're fine, you can approve that tonight. procurement and competitive bidding and emergency contracting policy that had previously been approved by ordinance back in 2005. And that will need an updated ordinance, but my plan on that one is take some feedback, because there's some policy items in there. And I'll explain what those are when we get there, but there's some policy items in there. And then when I had talked to our attorney, Rachel McVean, months ago about needing to update this, she had said, please let me get a review of it first to make sure that any laws that may have changed since 2005, we capture those. We reference things by code, but she just wants to make a check on that. The board of directors compensation, that one was done by ordinance. The general manager reimbursement policy has never been anything in the district like that before, because they were previously operating under as an employee. That policy, you could just decide you don't want one because it's covered under my employment agreement, or you could just say, it's good to be clear for now and into the future to do that one. That one was not done by ordinance because there never was one, so we can approve that today. The employee travel guidelines had been done by ordinance, so we're gonna need to come back with an ordinance. Surplus property had an ordinance, trespassers had an ordinance, and the delinquencies and service disconnection of. So we discussed, and I've discussed and kind of looked into this. Do we really need to do an ordinance for those to re-up them? My opinion is, and my recommendation is, yes, because it would be nice. You've got past ordinances that feed into the current ordinance implementing whatever policy these are. Let's pass an ordinance that says this policy and all previous ones have been superseded, and future, you don't have to have an ordinance. So just kind of close the loop. So that's the plan on these. So with that, the general administrative policy, I pretty much think I covered some of the main.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
So with the new super duper computer program we have, can we put, I don't know if you can do it with reminders or whatever, dates when these policies need to be reviewed so that it just doesn't, we don't skip it? Does that make sense?
Yep. And yes, so we have multiple calendars now with Office 365, my calendar, Kayla's calendar. We have a vacation calendar, we have an employee schedule calendar, and so we can have a calendar that will, for these types of reminders. And so we've already kind of started that. Like, we've noticed that, like, the electronic agency report, the EAR, I think I reported that to you before, that I didn't know exactly when that was supposed to, well, it's due every April 10th. So well, then put it in the calendar. Then on March 1st, reminder, you better start logging in to do this one. So.
That's just, I don't want us to get to the point where we have, so these are 205, so it's almost 20 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. So on the administrative policies, we did get some notes from Chair Fickus on that one, and one of them was we have general administrative policies, and it's actually should be policy, and there's multiple policies in here, or there's directives in there. I think under the Board of Directors list of items, I haven't even told Emily about this one, but I noticed we have voting for members of LAFCO, and I think we need to clarify that that's voting for members of the LAFCO Special District Representative. We do not vote on whether the county's representative on LAFCO or the other ones. So there was a question about the page 2, and I think we should just kind of dive right in there. We have board meetings, regular scheduled meetings on the 3rd Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m. Blah, blah, they can be modified by ordinance. By the way, they were moved from daytime daytime, middle of the week, meetings by ordinance to Wednesdays, third Wednesdays at 6 p.m. So the board has discretion to do that, but it has to be held for that. And then we have the type meeting minutes, will be action meeting minutes. A record of those present to speak on the motions and votes taken, and then we'll keep the meetings to be recorded, and the recordings of the meetings kept for 7 years. I think Chair Fickus also asked about other records retention schedule, and we have added and are going to suggest sort of a catch-all that all board of directors records a minimum of 5 years. This one would be 7 years. Yes.
So what do you want to use in your LAFCO representative, or just want to use?
Special district.
Special district representative.
Okay.
Voting for members of the LAFCO Special District Representative.
So the concern I've had, guys, with the board meeting minutes is that we're going from verbatim to action item. And I think we're gonna go into a shock if all we're seeing is action items. So I don't know how happy I was with that. And I was kinda wondering if there was a happy medium. So I'm kind of curious as to, do we try it and see what Kayla produces? And then we adjust it if it's, because I like reading the minutes and seeing a lot of things, cause it refreshes your mind. If we're only getting action minutes, are we going to be missing out of some of that?
I understand your concern, and I'm wondering if the minutes can't possibly be posted online, and because they're kept for what, up to 7 years anyway, actually, the recording.
Oh, the recording, okay.
Right, so it's available if anybody wants to see all of that. It's a bit of a challenge to do the verbatim, I think.
Oh, absolutely, I agree
Okay.
100%.
And
I said happy medium.
happy medium. So, happy medium, Terry.
I think if we can get recordings online, that would be just as good as the.
So you guys are all happy with, yes, ma'am?
Well, I guess to that, and I know Director Beaver has a question, but my suggestion, first of all, let us look and see. I'm pretty sure we can. We do have some data limits on size of stuff we can put online. And I think if we run into that, we can even say, contact us and we'll email it to you within 24 hours, whatever. My one suggestion I have is let us go for the next few months with this. You have the opportunity every time we bring it to you in consent calendar to say, I think we need more into it and stuff like that. That's what I'm hoping maybe we can do, is another happy medium, and we'll also look into posting the.
I only have one concern, is that the one grant that maybe it wasn't a grant, but they were very specific and wanted to see the minutes from our board meetings. And that's why, pardon me?
That was the audit, wasn't it?
No. It was to it was for something that we applied for money, and, they wouldn't give us it until they saw our minutes, and that's why Beverly and different people feverishly got the minutes typed up, is because we needed to show it to them. So that would be my only concern. I can see cutting back, but if that's going to be a problem with different grants or people asking for it, that would be my only concern.
But they would only want the action.
Yeah, they
Yes.
probably would only
They're
want
gonna read
that.
that whole thing.
Yeah.
Isn't there software?
Okay.
So
So-
let me ask a question if I can. Do we not keep a hard copy in binders? Yeah, so there is a hard copy, so we can go back to 2018, 2022, just like you went back to the 2020.
But-
for the minutes.
If we don't do it
or
verbatim.
If we don't do verbatim, we're not going to get that, we are going to get a simpler form. But I agree, if we can say, hey, let's try it, and if we're unhappy with it, let's reevaluate.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm agreeable.
I think that works.
I just wanted to make sure everybody realized, we may see, instead of going from 7 pages, we'll be down to 2. Or
my only concern is, would it be a problem down the road for us as should try and get busy applying for grants? That's my only concern.
Well, I will ask and check on that, but I don't believe so. I believe all they want when either granting agencies or auditors are the minutes that show whatever action.
That we took action on it.
And I'm very positive they won't read any of the other stuff.
Then let's go for it.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would just mention, yes, we can run it through the computer and get it transcribed, that is super helpful. But as Kayla reports, it's still hours to go through the transcription and get the right names attributed, to get it formatted and all the rest of that stuff. Still something that we can do, and actually, if Microsoft will transcribe even better, what we can do then is we could have the action minutes for your approval or disapproval. We could have the recording and the transcription, just a raw transcription without a lot of other stuff. So that too could be emailed to somebody to read through. So that's what, I can't, I'm not gonna commit to that right now because I don't know for sure. But that would be another sort of meeting.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Emily?
The other thing is that if we ever had a grant that wanted more than the action item,
Yeah, we'll go back to the recording.
we
We
would
have the
just do
recording.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll just type on it.
we'll probably get just the section that they have to do that. Geez, you know, I saw in my notes here that I forgot to mention to you, this is our first meeting with the newly cleaned carpet. Everybody noticed that the carpet has been cleaned in this room. Smells better, looks better, feels better, and I believe it'll help us preserve this for a longer period of time. So, all right. Standing committees. We have in here that the committee will be composed of 2 directors and up to 2 community members. Again, this is sort of a board call. Do you want it up to? Do you want it at least 2? Do you want it 2 or 10 or whatever? But I'll leave it at that. And then officers of the board may fill vacancies on a standing committee until, I think we should have committee vacancy is filled. And then it has down below, after the 3 committees, every January the board will call for applications for the community, from the community for committee membership, select up to 2 committee members for a 1-year term. So that's the other modification since last time. Open to board discussion and input.
I would like to say at least 2, or I don't want to limit it to 2. If 3 people want to go, great, that's the more the kids involved, the better.
But I think if we have just the up to, then if we only get 1, we're happy.
Mm-hmm.
But if we say it's gotta be 2, then,
Okay.
you know,
That was our thoughts.
Yeah.
Because you don't get volunteers.
yeah.
I guess real quick though, to answer Director Beaver's question, I think the intention here was up to 2. What if we only got 1, and that would be fine, and we said that ag committee can have 1, and that works fine, or whatever committee. But what if we had 3? You can appoint 3.
Mm-hmm.
There's no limit, I don't think.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think there should be a limit, you know, like, we have a crowd, you
Yeah,
know.
we got 4 people, hey, great. Interest, awesome.
Yeah, my only comment to that is, since it's a Brown Act meeting, the public is invited, and they would have the right to put in any input or, suggestions they wanted for consideration. Because we don't act on them, we formulate recommendations to the rest, the full board, so.
What if we just
You
put,
want to say 1 or more?
how about 2 directors and community members?
I don't wanna end up with 15 people.
How about at least?
You mean at least 2?
And if you only have 1, you're out of compliance.
They shall
Yes.
select at least.
Yeah,
So you get at least means you could do 3, right?
1 or more,
How about 1 or
sounds
more?
almost better.
1 or more?
Yeah.
That gives you more options.
Okay, so let's say, knock on wood, we have 5 people. The whole so then are we overboard? So then,
Possibly.
yeah,
Mhm.
so.
They have to fill out applications.
But then that's board discretion.
You decide
Choose
who and
you're
how
going
many.
to choose out of the 5.
Okay,
And at that point, you're gonna say, well, we really only think what you do,
Yeah.
or we want all 5, or whatever, but that's a board decision at that point.
And then by saying one or more, gives
Right.
us the option to
I
decide
agree.
how many.
okay.
Okay, one
That's
or
great.
more.
So my issue with this line right here was that when it says a term of 1 year, once you got them hook, line, and sinker, you don't wanna let them go. So do we wanna say a minimum?
No,
Okay, you want a term of 1 year,
correct,
So
because,
they can reapply.
yeah,
okay,
And if you're
so,
doing a good job, we encourage you.
okay, okay,
If
if you're
they suck it
if you're reading that,
Please.
if you're reading that to mean that they can reapply, yeah, I wasn't reading it that way.
Yeah.
So when I said to serve for a term to me means, you know.
But
one
we
time
would call
shot.
for applications, and they simply
Okay,
apply.
all right, I'm good,
okay,
There's no term limits, it's just a term.
okay.
And I think if you, I'm glad we discussed this though, but, because for clarity's sake, it's a 1-year term every January, and obviously you could have somebody do 10 1-year terms if they want.
Okay, I'm good.
Do you wanna put in there community members may reapply?
Oh, yeah, but that's,
You wanna put it in there?
No, I'm okay.
All right, good.
We're all in agreement with it, so.
one real quick. So we're clear, because I think we're good here, and we're gonna be able to keep moving forward. So, first paragraph. These committees shall be composed of 2 directors and at least, one or more community members.
Yes.
yes,
And then, after the list of committees, they shall select 1 or more community members to serve for a term of 1 year each.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, making sure we're clear.
Mhm.
It's consistent in both
Yeah.
places.
Okay.
Very
Do
good.
we wanna to avoid confusion, do we wanna take the word term out? For a 1-year period, or, I don't know. Does term sound like it ends and you're done?
But you guys are working a term, like you as directors
Well, that's
are
true.
serving a term, so these individuals as community members volunteering and helping, they would be serving their term as well.
So I was looking at it, term, but he can give a different interpretation, reapply for your term, I'm okay.
That's fine. Let's move on then.
The next is just sort of updating the committee responsibilities. I think we heard last time that, like, the bolded section here could be added to the committee, saying the agricultural committee shall meet a minimum of 2 times a year. And then we have the finance committee, minimum of 1 quarter, planning steering committee shall meet a minimum of 1 quarter. If you want that in there, we can, we don't have to have that in there. Those do, add to the duties and meetings and times and all the rest of that stuff, but.
Finance definitely needs to be.
It's been changed before you guys even pointed it out. So, it's all good.
Anybody have problems with the wording on all 3 of those? Are we good with the meeting times?
All right, ad hoc committees. Now, at the last meeting, we had the conversation of what happens now that we've gotten rid of the personnel committee, if we need something for the personnel committee. So, my recommendation is, and I've checked on a bunch of other admin policies of a few other districts, and what they do is they have a little ad hoc committee section, and this is what we tried to hopefully get the words right on. So an ad hoc committee is established for a limited purpose and duration, or given a specific task. When the work of the ad hoc committee is completed, the committee is dissolved. So this is really providing direction to the chair when they set up an ad hoc committee. So you cannot set up an ad hoc committee saying, I'd like Director Y and Z to be an ad hoc committee to, you know, monitor the tree growth on district property. Because that would last forever, right? I mean, so like, that's not a specific enough purpose, and it's not a duration that's reasonable.
Correct.
But you could have an ad hoc committee to recruit a new general manager,
Yep.
or to resolve a personnel issue, because that would be a specific task, and you know that once you've got your new GM or you've resolved that personnel issue, you would dissolve it. You could have one that could do MOU, you know, monitor MOU negotiations. I'm just using this, these are examples. I've seen ad hoc committees, when we build our solar array out here, you may want to have an ad hoc committee decide what you want to call it. You know, may want to call it
Are we building solar? I mean,
what's that?
are we building solar?
No, I'm just using
No,
this
this
as
is
an
future,
example.
future.
I hope so.
His name's a-
Hopes and wishes and
Yeah.
stardust.
The
Right now.
district in the past has named the Larry Russell, well field, right, in the South Booster plant. I don't think they did an ad hoc committee to come up with a name for it, but they could have, right? So that's just an example, a lot of districts do that. There could be a specific legislative issue or regulatory issue that are impacting this community services district. So the chair, at their discretion, and at obviously the board's willingness, can say, this issue is a regulatory issue that is a burden to the district. You are gonna be on that committee, and you will be on that committee to monitor, report, and provide information until the legislation has been passed or not passed or regular. And then that gives you your task and your duration. I know I'm overstating this, but I think hopefully that explains it.
So let me ask a related question that happened just recently. I announced, had it posted for a ag committee meeting. And because I'm the only one on the ag committee right now, and there are only a couple of people here, I asked if it was all right for us to just make it an ad hoc so anybody could speak up. So did I violate some statute or something by, you know, randomly saying, let's make it ad hoc because nobody's recording it and there's only two people other than myself?
You could have had a very informal standing committee, because it is a standing committee. It's
Right.
ongoing, so it's not ad hoc, never will be.
Okay, fair enough, and I did call it an ad hoc at that time,
Yeah.
so this is for clarification in case it pops up again, so that we do it right.
I think in that instance, we look at it as a kind of a community meeting, you know, just,
Yeah,
you know, really
It's
not.
been duly noted that it's a Brown Act standing committee
Yeah,
meeting,
but you
but
did not have a quorum or you didn't have
No,
enough members.
I didn't have 2 board members.
So you couldn't necessarily have made any recommendations to the board from that meeting.
Correct.
But you can have a community meeting with a focus of what it was posted to have a focus for.
Which is what we did.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
this is just education for all of us.
Chair Fickus, anything modified that we should do on this section?
No, or you would have heard from me.
I just wanted to hear it publicly.
You just wanted to hear those words.
No, it took, I was the one that had the biggest, issue, and you handled it quite well. And so I appreciate that. I should have put in there, thank you,
No,
because
no,
it took care of my concerns quite well, so.
I think,
Okay, so I got my ad.
good, I thought that was good.
Yep.
And then, I believe, the next one that you brought up. And
But, so, maybe we should just go page by page and not just mine.
all right,
But was there any concern, my next concern is page 5. So anybody have anything between,
Yes,
Okay.
on page 3.
all right,
The roles of general manager and staff. When we get down to the 3rd paragraph, that they are responsible for hiring with the approval of the general manager. I'm really comfortable, Paul, with anybody you hire. I realize that you have the knowledge and the leadership to do that. I am not comfortable with them hiring. And I don't think our staff is that big that we have to show that duty to them. I mean, they should be with you and talk about it, but I think in your, as you're beginning to train leaders, they need to have that example in front of them.
Well, I appreciate that. I think the reason why it's actually written this way is because we just hired 3 new distribution operators. All 3 of them were interviewed by the distribution supervisor and a panel of 2 more people, treatment. And in some cases me, and in some cases Kayla, did you sit on those? No. And then all of those, then the way we're doing it is they have to submit to me their finalists, and then I either interview them in person or afterwards, and then I am doing the hiring with the distribution supervisor. And that's the way we did it for treatment as well. So that's why we have here that they oversee the employees and are responsible for hiring with approval of the general manager, employees in that department, because they could not hire any of those employees without me approving.
I agree with you, but what I'm saying is I think that they can really benefit from your leadership and guidance. I think that it's much needed.
So I have a question then with that right there. If you take a look at the wording, and are responsible for hiring with approval of the general manager, if we just said with the general manager, because you're just saying you're doing that in the process, you're with them anyways. So if you got rid of approval, and if you said with, then they're not doing it alone. It doesn't indicate that they're doing it alone. And are responsible for hiring with the general manager.
I just want to prevent what happened previously, where we had people that
Family members that were being hired.
Yes.
yeah, and if we don't have if we don't have somebody strong like you, we could end up in trouble again.
So what would you like it to say?
Could it be interviewing? The staff is, the supervisors are responsible for interviewing and hiring on approval, maybe hiring on approval of the general manager instead of with approval?
Or interviewing and recommending.
I kind of like the idea of just saying with the general
Yeah.
manager. I think
Right.
Director Chair
Yeah.
Fickus has a good one there. I mean,
I
why
do
not
too.
just do it that way if that works for the board?
Works for me.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Everybody good? We're just getting rid of,
Approval of.
Yeah.
okay,
Anything else on page 3, anybody? Page 4, anybody? I will just mention, in case there was a question on this, there had been some conversation on the timely receipt, approval, and payment section that, our bookkeeper had said, well, I'm not sure if those days are gonna work, but we talked to them, and she's like, nope, I'm good, those are good dates, and it takes advantage of any potential, because, we usually there's bills that show up around by the 5th of the month that all need to get paid right away, or at least within that time, and then there's bills that show up later, so that one.
My only concern would be the potential for incurring late fees or late charges or whatnot.
Office Depot, that's ridiculous. $29 late fee for being a day late.
It's being paid online now, so that was speed up.
Yes, and that's why these dates usually would keep us in that, but.
Yeah. It happens.
Melissa's so good about getting things in and out on a timely fashion that I have no, I was the one who brought that up, and when she said it's not a problem for her, I believe her, because she does it.
Page 5, Director Chair Pickles.
Yeah, the issue I have on page 5, and I don't, so you guys are gonna have to help me out with that. My question is that we talk about cash disbursements, and we've got a whole thing on check preparation and check signing and mailing checks. What about discussion about electronics? We've gone more to electronics. Do we need something in there to discuss electronic payment guidelines? I don't,
Debit and credit cards.
well, no,
No, we're paying bills online.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think maybe we can just add something, I don't know what Emily thinks on this one, under the check signing, because you've got your preparation. The preparation for the vendor expense payments is pretty much the same. We run it through the same process. Those of you that are currently check signers are now seeing basically approval of electronic payments. So I think we should probably just have check signing / electronic payment.
Well, and
You take check preparation off the top and just put,
Payments.
Actually,
Yeah.
I think I would add a number 10 and just say that all electronic fund transfers will not be processed until they have been approved.
Thank
That's a
you.
good idea.
Prior to
did you
board
write that
approval.
down?
No, but I can say that.
We'll
Let me
take
go back into the recording and see if you got that, because that was
So-
awesome.
But I agree with Director Lincoln, instead of just saying check preparation, then we need to either, add / electronic or just preparation.
Just
preparation for payment.
Sure,
payment
payment preparation.
Yeah.
There you go.
Payment preparation, I like that.
And get rid of the word check.
Yes.
I like that.
Yep.
Payment,
Way to-
Okay,
Good call.
way better.
all right.
Give me just a second to write down what I said.
We have a recording here.
I'm so wonderful.
Listen for 2 hours.
No, I don't. Listen, I have too many 200 accounts to inactivate to be home.
Just kidding.
So anybody with issues on page,
We're all good with page 5?
Yep.
Emily, can you restate what your 10 is before we move on? I just want to make sure.
absolutely.
Okay. All electronic fund transfers, in parentheses, capital letters, EFT, must be approved prior to processing payment.
Okay, and up above, we already have the 2 check signers and stuff.
Yeah.
All right, we
Okay.
good with that?
Yep.
All right, page 6.
Anybody? Page 6? Somebody's phone's ringing, Emily. Page 7, anybody?
So down at the bottom of 6, we took that line out, which serves as the district personnel manual, since we're having one done now.
Where?
That's at the top of page 7.
Look at the bottom of page 6 for me.
Crossed out.
Oh, yeah, you crossed it out, so we're
Yeah.
All
good.
right, across there.
Okay.
Page 7, anybody? Page 8, anybody?
Yes. I'm not sure it necessarily needs to be there, but I have had this issue, and I'm wondering if under preparation of time cards, should we be adding something, to the effect that it shall be legible? Meaning they're filling out their time cards. Well, I've had a tough time at occasionally reading their overtime and other things to decipher what it is.
I just think that the supervisor needs to.
Well, and that's quite possible, but
I mean, it's a given,
it
it
is.
should be legible, and
It should
just
be.
because you put it in there doesn't mean that somebody that has poor handwriting who's gonna make it legible.
Well, and the easy person to do it would be the supervisor,
Right.
because they're, looking at the
Right.
time cards,
Right,
so they should do that.
So I guess we instruct our general manager to have a conversation with the two supervisors.
And I'm gonna look to Kayla, because we just processed our first payroll via paychecks. We had to type in all of that stuff, but soon, timekeeping's gonna be on paychecks as well. And I believe that means you're gonna have to type in the explanation,
We
so.
can require an
That
explanation.
will be very
Yeah,
good.
so they would have to type
They could
it in,
either
so
use it on
it's
their
all gonna
phone.
be electronic now.
So there'll be, like on your current overtime sheets, you know, you have various categories of information, date, location, whatnot. So,
Yeah.
The hope, one of my primary reasons to go with paychecks is that is gonna, once we get to being entered in there, there's no way to write it down. It's all gotta be either typed out on their phone or on the computer.
so if they type in snow day, it'll automatically delete it.
I told you that was gonna come up, didn't I? Thank you.
Just.
All right.
So the only concern I have is that if you look at number 1 on page 8, it says, and is paid on the following Thursday, 1 week after the end of the pay period. So it's the one week after.
Yeah,
But then if you go to payroll distribution down at the bottom, the checks will be distributed by the Thursday following the end of the pay period.
Which is 1 week after.
right,
It says the same exact thing.
it does.
It does not.
It does.
It does, it's just worded
It's
differently.
the same meaning, and it's the wording in the MOU, because Paul and I checked.
There you go.
I just thought it was confusing, 1 week after. This one says 1 week after. This one does not say 1 week after down
It's
here.
right out of the MOU.
Yeah, per the MOU, the paychecks will be distributed.
Sorry. I mean,
I don't,
it's up to you.
I don't accept that logic, but whatever.
It's up to you guys. It's up to you guys. I'm here to change it if you want.
We think it says the same thing.
Okay, see you later. That's okay.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on.
I can't resist saying though, that this is a little recognized, so I'm gonna say it publicly again. Major improvement and control component for the district. I just talked to the auditors, the management interviewee, and they asked, well, what kind of new control thing? Well, one of them is this one. Previously, under the previous MOU, the pay period ended Thursday midnight. Everybody got paid by 5 p.m. the next day. So that could potentially.
You're right.
I would not, if not, all my staff would say, like,
You're gonna make
out
me
of
look
here.
better off
So,
in a bit later.
But regardless of that, the fact that we have supervisorial review of people's time cards, then admin assistant review of time cards and making sure that all the numbers add up correctly, because I'm pretty sure previous to that, it was just, oh, they said they worked 90 hours, but we just typed in 90 hours and printed a paycheck. So all those things, this was huge. So I'm sorry to just reiterate it, but I think publicly we need to acknowledge this was a big change in the last 6 months.
Do we want some sort of a stamp where it says, you know, reviewed by supervisor and the initial or anything? Because I noticed
They
a lot
sign
of
it at the
things.
bottom.
They sign at the bottom, okay.
In paychecks, the supervisors are going to be assigned their employees that work directly under them.
Right,
In their login, they're going to have to go in and approve their time cards. Each
Actually,
You
individual
will
one.
see
and
that.
that's what I want to see,
So-
yes.
Can I just clarify here, to make sure that we're all understanding, no more paper, right? It's all online, so there is no stamping anything.
Right, but they will actually print those out for us to review and approve before
But it will show that.
transfer is done.
When you print it out.
Yes,
Yeah.
we saw that today.
Today?
Yes.
Yeah, payroll today.
Yesterday.
Oh, yesterday.
Eventually,
It all runs
can't
together.
can't that be done online too with you've got extra computer and just.
Yeah, we could, but I think, again, for, well, baby steps, well, we get there, let's print it out, make
Yeah.
sure it has all those, make sure those that are reviewing it can see it, and then eventually, yes, the approvers can do the same thing as these approvers, which is
Right.
online.
Right.
So you're right.
That's the way we did it, is
Yeah, it's
we
a-
just went online and,
Yeah.
It's a learning process.
Yeah.
It's a little different, so we had questions.
All right, Emily, on page 9, is there anything new on this one?
No.
I have a question.
You've got this section here that we put in.
Oh, yes. Direction.
stale checks, it says, you're gonna write them off in 6 months, is that on the check? That they're only good for 6 months? Or, cause I've screwed up in that cash checks and,
I think
Most
it
of
is
your
on,
banks will,
I think
Yeah.
the bank, that on the check, it says 60 days.
Hold on, I think it's actually on our checks printed as 90 days.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
printed on there, but I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah, it's there.
So, it's on there.
okay, that's all, that was the only question I had is, you know, I'd hate to get in a big argument with somebody that,
They didn't know.
yeah,
So that gives
Like,
a 90-day leeway for somebody to come in with a check. Before we have
Yeah.
removed it from the system.
Yeah.
It's a cushion.
no, but it's a really good point. And, you know, I guess, I just wrote myself a note, make sure that the next time we reorder checks, that we have that on there still,
Yeah.
right? You know, because you don't want
Most
to,
banks won't take it after 90.
yeah.
and that's why it's.
So I do have one that starts at the bottom of 9 and continues on to 10, and that is records retention.
Yep.
And, I'm wondering if we don't want to add one other item to. Go ahead.
Just 1 second, we have skipped this whole section here that was new and inserted. Are you guys all good with that?
yeah,
Okay, just verifying.
Yeah, anyway, so record retention.
Yes, go.
The one item that I did not see on there was, mileage logs and vehicle maintenance, retention of those records.
I don't think so. That should be something that's kept pretty current.
Yes, but the records of the mileage logs, in case a board member or community wanted to come in and review that for some reason.
Yeah, we have mileage logs and maintenance records. So what should be, how long should we keep those?
How long do you want?
No longer than a year.
oh yeah, you gotta keep it longer than a year.
I had as a suggestion 3 years, because it seemed like a lot of those others for that type of retention were in the 3-year range.
That's what I was gonna suggest. too.
All right, we'll do 3 years.
So it's mileage
And
and
maintenance,
and-
Vehicle, mileage logs, vehicle
maintenance
maintenance
logs.
records.
What's the asterisk stand for?
Forever.
Yeah, forever.
Forever, yeah, it's in there.
I
So-
know, but I couldn't find it when I was.
It's on the first part, first
Yeah.
paragraph.
You know, we'll have to get this reformatted so we don't start record retention on one page and go to the next. 'Cause
Well,
I keep,
when it's not printed out, like this, mine are all printed out just fine. So it's just because of the stuff
that's
that was added.
because your printer treats you nicer than mine.
That's just
So-
because when you print it out and you've added other things, it messes
so-
up.
We start on 9, we go 10 and 11.
Yeah, so let me just mention, because I mentioned it before, we have bank statements is the first one, these are obviously in alphabetical order.
Mm-hmm.
We plan to insert after bank statements, board of directors records 5 years, so it's kind of a catch-all, in other words, if it's not minutes, or if it's not whatever, in other words, whatever has been kind of either submitted, or other kind of elements for the board, we'll just have.
Like training.
Like training and all
Sure.
that, everything that's in
Just-
your binders.
Just
Right.
binders, just a catch-all, you know.
How long did we say, 5?
5.
So we're changing it from 3 to 5.
No,
No.
no, it'll be a new item added
Oh.
underneath range. Board of director,
Board of director documents, maybe. Well, cause you guys
Board
get,
records.
you get a a copy of Form 700,
That's what
right?
I'm talking about. Each one of you have a binder,
Right,
and it has where you applied and your 700 forms and all of that.
ethics training,
And your
whatever.
training and all that is in there. So,
Yes, and so, is it on the bottom or? That we have, we pretty much maxed out the room in our, current filing cabinet for personnel and board records that go back 20 years. So, at some point, we don't need
right.
the board, some board member who was here 10 years ago, 400, 700, right? We can
Right,
purge that, but we had no way of that.
right.
And I don't know what we're gonna do with those old employee records.
You have to show.
Yeah, the ones past, whatever we have to in here.
What do we have in here for personnel records? 7 years, right? Okay.
In either files, yeah.
So again, we have some that have been thrown in the bottom of the drawer
The dusty pit.
that, yes, that need to be shredded. Anything else on our records retention?
I'm good.
That was good.
This is mostly just an FYI, but at the end on page 11 is just a list of a bunch of different policies. This was mostly for this is not necessarily to be part of this policy, right? Only that's just kind of
It's just a reference.
right.
And-
Because I think we had talked about how there are other districts, and hopefully we can get to this point. Once we've passed a bunch of the ones that are in this list, we'll put them all into one Clear Creek Community Services District policy manual.
And actually,
But it wouldn't hurt to have it in here just like it is.
I need to look at this list because this was a list of ones that we had. Well, no, it's not because we didn't have a little serve letter.
Right.
I need to review this and if there's any that we've done that are not in here, I'll add.
We'll add that.
So
I think the record-
one that's missing right off the, nope, it's in there, general manager reimbursement, okay.
It would be nice if it was in the same order as we're gonna put it in the binder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that would be,
that, I think my goal would be, you would have a cover page that says the, Clear Creek's policy,
So general manager
manual.
isn't
The
in here.
next page
Yeah,
would
it
be
is.
an
It's-
index.
yeah,
Under general administration.
and then this would follow
It's
the
there.
index.
This will be the first one, actually, this
Yeah.
this one. All right,
Are you sure about that?
The reimbursement policy?
Fraud prevention, journal administration,
It's under
general
G,
managers,
So it goes under
reimbursement.
ethics, fraud, general admission, and general managers.
It's not on mine. Here it is. You know why? I know why. Because this one was printed a long time ago and I probably did not.
So we are at the point where we said we could, approve this
It's not yours?
evening.
I believe so.
So, is everybody happy with what,
I am.
okay?
Yeah.
So I need a motion on the, floor.
Before we go that far, and I'm willing to approve what we've done so far, but I can see where we're gonna be adding some things possibly later.
Like,
Turn on, turn offs. Is there gonna be a district policy needed to be for it?
That's number 9 on our list, delinquencies and service disconnection shut-off policy.
Okay, and what about, customer outside or normal operation hours once their water turned off because they have a leak on the property or it's a holiday? Do we need a policy on that?
Okay, I have one.
And if so, will that fit under the general administration?
Hold that thought.
No, I don't, we may someday wanna do that, but my suggestion is that that's separate, that's part of your service connections, shut off, shut on, turn on policies.
So you want to include it in there?
And so what we would do is someday, yes, it'll be all part of the packet, but it's not part of the general administrative.
Okay, I can buy that.
yes,
So on my little to-do list, I have update the ethics policy, work on the reserve policy, drought planning and water shortage policy, review and update water service rules. So I believe
That'll fit
Director
there.
McVeigh, that would fall underneath that.
Definitely.
So we're aware of it, and then I also have on there, review and update all the fees. The list that you and I were looking at tonight.
Capacity charges,
I make a motion that we, pass the general admission policies as administration policies, as corrected here today.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Director Beaver to accept the general administrative policy as, amended or discussed for changes, and a second by Director McVeigh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Can I-
opposed?
No happy dances.
Too late.
I'm just doing just.
Oh.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Okay, we are
I would
on.
like to thank and acknowledge Emily for all her hard work on that one.
Yeah.
This means one less trip into my office.
He's tired.
So we're now at.
Okay, now,
competitive
procurement, competitive bidding, and emergency contracting policy. The board might recall that, the last time this was done was in 2005, yes, sir.
Sorry to back up, but right here, it says date approved was September 2023. Are we adjusting that?
For what, the admin one?
I
The journal
will,
administrator-
no, I
Yeah,
will
yeah.
change it
That's
because
what
I
it
thought it was gonna go
Okay.
to the board.
I just want to make sure that we're getting all of our
So we're
I's
at
dotted
ninth,
and
right?
T's crossed. Yes,
Tonight, just
Tonight.
happened. It's done.
The ninth,
thank you.
is verifying the date.
Moving on.
I would love to.
Yeah, it's a
insert
good
that
point
link.
though, Director McVeigh, pretty much all of these have date approved September 2023, just,
They do.
we obviously can change that based on whatever we
That's why
want.
it's highlighted.
So the procurement competitive, the last time it was amended was in January of 2005. And it was only a competitive bidding and emergency contracting policy. It was not super clear as it relates to sort of procurement elements of things. So you have your purpose. It's all about board overview, standards and methods, guide the district in obtaining goods, equipment, and materials. We have our list of government codes. Again, these are gonna be checked by our attorney, but I know we have those. What we may not have is something new that we may be missing, but I'm pretty sure we're good with that. There are some specific things that are at the board's discretion. One is on page 2, well, there's a lot of these, but you have your fundamental principles, you have your element of conflicts of interest, right? We're trying to avoid conflicts of interest, so we can make sure that we do that. And then you have procurement authority. Large districts will give authority to their general manager $100,000. Some districts will give $15,000. Some will do $50,000. It's really up to you. We, in our conversations, thought 25,000 seemed like reasonable for our size of our district. But again, it's up to you, and you can see later on just some of the things, and maybe Emily, you might want to mention a couple of edits on the methods of procurement and some of the informal quotes, the RFP portion of things, and sealed bids, that's usually for capital improvement projects. Then we have a whole definition of capital improvement projects and sort of the way in which that's processed. In most cases, I envision, like our backwash ponds project, it's gonna be a $5 million project. Our engineer is gonna be mostly, like, they're gonna have the design, they're gonna be hosting the bid conference, and they're gonna be doing a lot of that stuff, because they're our expert for that. But there has some of this which we can talk more about. I will just use as an example the new software, right? We asked 4 or 5 companies to provide us with proposals. We got 3 basic proposals from companies, 1 the current, 2 new. We did a review. Since the contract was gonna be more than $25,000, I brought it to the board, right, last month, you guys authorized me to do that. We asked for 4 proposals for cleaning their pants. We got 2, basically, and we selected one. The total life of that contract is less than $25,000, and it was the same as what we were paying before. I signed the contract. So I think that's just sort of how we're looking at it currently. And then you can see sort of our looking for informal quotes. You know, we asked a couple of people to let us know how much it's gonna cost to clean the carpets around here. $500 later, go do it, or whatever, it's $800. So that's just kind of different ways and.
So you feel that $25,000 is a good amount for this?
Can I answer to that, just real quick? So I had 5 samples. Most water districts, even in our size, are 100,000. Some of them are 50,000. Paul and I just talked about it, and we decided to go with the 25,000, and it's up to discussion for you guys. If you know you wanted to up that to 50,000, I will tell you that state law for competitive bidding states that the public entity will decide what is a small amount for them, and that amount does not require competitive bidding. So that's just a little bit of information for you guys.
So, to also directly answer your question, Dr. Beaver, I'm making this recommendation based on my limited knowledge of the last 4 years of this district. And I believe that gaining some element of collaboration and trust in the coming years, that starting at 25,000 would probably be best. That's one of the reasons why I have brought things that normally in other places I wouldn't have brought to the board, but I think the community needs to know. And so I think my recommendation is we go with the 25,000. Maybe we have a meeting in 2 or 3 years and say, all right, we're good, let's go to 50. But I think that's just my opinion.
And for reference, it was 15,000 before. If you want to know what
That's
is
what
the
it
old
was, yeah,
policy,
yeah.
it was 15,000.
Do we need something in there, in reference to purchases like that must be in line with the current fiscal budget? Is that something that the board feels? You know, I trust our general manager to do a fine job. We're setting up policies for the future also.
Well, just because it's in there doesn't mean.
Everybody should have a copy of the budget, and if it comes to us, we look at the budget and see if it is, and then question.
But if it's under 25,000 and he has that authority, he could be out buying and buying and buying, which he's not going to, but I mean, then there is no
But
overseeing.
the check signers have gotta,
Exactly.
you know, you've gotta sign the check for it, you can't just go out and buy, you've gotta sign the check. And at that time, you could question.
And we do quarterly reviews of the
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making sure there's checks and balances.
That is the whole purpose of your budget. And then you're overseeing as check signers, so if something came in and you're looking at it and it's over a budget, then that's gonna be discussed at a.
Quarterly reviews will also.
Well, that's where it's gonna have to identify, because we're not always gonna know that we're over budget if we don't have the documents to look at to see if we're close, so.
What'll be in the quarterly review, it'll show up on
Right.
the quarterly review,
Right.
so.
I don't think it personally needs to be in there.
No.
That's
The
fine.
budget part, okay.
Yeah.
I have no problem with the 25, so. I didn't
Okay.
notice.
I agree with what you say, Paul. It's just a matter of developing a trust that has been shattered.
Yeah, and I think now's the time to rebuild that with somebody who's willing to let you make it 25,000. Because I think we have a really good team going here, and, you know, I don't have a problem with some of the decisions that we have. To wait 3 or 4 weeks and get it on your agenda and make the thing and do it in an open forum. So, to me, that's a good, let's do it this way and see how that goes.
Don't we review this every year? Aren't we supposed to review these?
This one obviously has not been reviewed for 17.
I know that,
So,
It says 5.
so we currently are recommending 5 years, which would speed it up a lot. I forgot to mention it, but I was gonna mention it at some point. If you'd like, we could put 3 years on it, you know, maybe get, or 2 years, or bring it back in 2 years, and then at that time, we could say, hey, we're good, let's make it 5.
Yeah. I agree with that, so,
What, 3?
3, yeah.
And then put it on your calendar.
But we could always call a special meeting too,
Yeah.
If we needed to,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's a really good recommendation, and
So, Emily, when you were doing doing this and looking at other, districts with their policies,
Yes,
last year, it was a very concern that ours was so outdated, it didn't even meet current state.
so
You were confident that this,
I had updated versions, 2020, 2022.
so you're confident that this is good? I just wanna make sure that we're meeting the right wording and all of that.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm hoping for that,
Thank you.
as a
yeah.
former construction company administrator, Emily is very committed to this being right. I think that one reason why, I was gonna say this at the end, but I'll be based on your comment. I feel better about taking this draft after your review to our attorney, that it's gonna turn around pretty quick and we're gonna be okay, than if we had done it the other way around, because I think if I had sent the old one to her and said, can you provide edits, that would have cost us a bunch of money that we didn't
Yes.
even spend because it was so outdated.
Yeah.
The other one was.
I think
not
that-
good.
I think that everybody wants the time for review 3 years,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we can, at that stage of the game, see if the amounts need to be increased.
So I'm off topic a little bit, I'm curious, you pulled up your, packet off the internet and printed it? And you did too?
No, I think
You
that.
came, mine doesn't say draft on it. And I pulled it off the internet also.
Mine says draft.
Your printer doesn't like draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Okay, just an observation, well, wait a minute,
You
why-
must have had your windows closed, there's no draft.
Mine didn't say draft either,
Oh,
mine came up.
huh,
It might just be your printer or talking to
yeah, I
the
don't know.
document.
it is a shadow behind it.
Yeah,
Mm.
Now,
so,
can I just point out, so let's go, let's kind of cruise through this.
okay,
They're under page 3, methods of procurement. I think we were gonna maybe change that second bullet to just less than $50,000 requires informal quotes instead of 0 to 49,999. No,
Makes sense.
you weren't gonna do
no?
that? All right, I retract that. I
You
do
want
think,
things really accurate.
I think,
That would be correct, Director McVeigh.
I think, basically, I think all of this, we really should, unless you have some major problems with it, get it off and get this moved. I'm anxious to get it updated, I'll tell you why. I am hopeful that now that we have a funding agreement from the state for our concrete line backwash ponds, that our engineer, which I met with on Tuesday, will get some drawings ready for bid this winter, because we're gonna get our best prices if we bid it this winter. And so I want this to get approved in the next, month, before that happens, number one. Number two, the other reason to have a shorter period of time for review, if we run into things, I think one thing we might run into is we may not have our emergency contracting stuff in here as clear as we may need in the future. I don't know that now, but that may be something we need to edit in 3 years, aside from other things. Just like we may run into, everything's so expensive now that maybe $100,000 as the baseline for bids, maybe it should be 150. I don't know, I'm just thinking out ahead a little bit.
So as we move along, under quotes RFP, my only question on this paragraph was, what if we don't get 3 vendors bids? It says minimum of 3 vendors.
As long as you send out 3 requests, a no response is a bid.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Can we go back to informal?
Yeah.
I had 2 questions there. On first paragraph, it says, second line, the documentation of the quotes is recommended. I think that should be required.
Oh, hold on here. Where are you reading
Informal second line,
Oh, so,
Yeah, then we should at least print or PDF the stuff.
well, it says or phone call, so you're calling somebody on the phone, hey, how much
But
is
you
it?
have to document your phone call and sign it. That's a,
Oh, that's the documentation
Yeah,
right there.
that's a
Got it.
and web browsing
Got it.
can
Okay,
be.
okay.
Required instead of recommended.
Yep.
yeah.
Got it.
And on the next paragraph, for purchases of 5,000 or more, but less than 50, a minimum of 2 quotes, I think it should be standard 3. Should always try to get 3 quotes.
Well, you need to take that up with this gentleman
Yeah.
over here.
The what?
You need
Well,
to take that
If
up.
that's what you think,
That's a
we'll
request.
make it 3.
Well, that's, going back to, the government, we had to do 3. If I did phone quotes, I had to do 3.
Right.
So, I think, it's not that much harder to send out 3 than 2, so,
That's fine.
thanks. I got my way.
I think,
You can only bring this week.
Thank you, Director
But-
Lincoln, for backing me up on that.
Okay.
well, here's the only concern is, as long as it's clear that when you ask for 3 to 5 proposals, and you send it out, and you can document that you called or sent them, and if you get no response, and you only get 2, you say, I can say, I got 5 responses.
That's-
3 of them were, I'm not bidding or proposing.
that is
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
No response is a bid.
Yes.
No response is a
I
bid,
choose not to bid.
yes.
Okay,
We're good.
anything else on page 3?
Nope, I'm happy.
He won mine.
Page 4. Any issues?
Just the one correction on the CC.
Oh, yeah, you're right, I missed that.
Which page?
Page 4,
Okay.
capital improvement projects in the middle, A. And halfway through,
Yep, I see it. Thank you very much, good catch.
yep, good
I don't
catch.
see it even now.
And not with, and no, four C's and no S.
Yep,
Yep, thank you very much.
yep, good job. Page 5, anybody?
I had one.
Okay.
On opening the bids, it says that the staff, or a minimum of 2 members of the staff must be present and any other pertinent. Why shouldn't the finance committee be involved in opening bids?
Or a member attending.
Well, that's,
The opening.
So you would be any other pertinent individual, if that's what the board wanted to direct. Unless you want to specifically put it in here.
This sounds like state requirement to me when I read that,
Yes.
so,
Well, it also refers to, like when you have sealed bids that you're opening, generally your, architect is there.
Yeah.
Or your engineer is there, or, whoever has,
Those are normally the pertinent
Yeah.
individuals
that are bidding.
But I think you're right, that the
Yes,
finance
they can
committee
be
could be
there
part of it,
also.
yes.
Either one or
I've been to a
one or
number of
two.
bid openings.
Yes.
Okay. I think that covers it, the pertinent individuals. We wanna be
You
there.
okay with pertinent?
Not really.
I think to take the director's comment, we could say, minimum 2 members of the staff must be present. And at least, or something, at least one member of the finance committee.
Or you could say.
And any other pertinent individuals determined by the general manager.
Yeah,
So must be present, comma, one member of the finance committee.
At least.
Did you just say one,
Yeah, okay.
well, yeah, okay, one member of the finance committee
and other pertinent.
and any other pertinent individuals.
We have a comment from the peanut
Yeah,
gallery.
Emily wants to argue with you.
No, I'm not gonna argue, I just wanna make the suggestion that if you're saying one member from the finance committee, you're eliminating anybody else that's on the board that would want to attend, so maybe you might wanna
They could
say
be pertinent individuals.
any board member that chooses to attend.
But that they could be considered pertinent members.
If you want, just throw it out there.
Thank you for.
Are we
Well, it's up to the
overthinking
board.
Yeah, it's up to the board,
Just-
so,
At least one member of the board, that might be another way to just put it there. Just remember, if more than 2 of you show up, it's a Brown Act. And
That's
then-
right.
Yeah.
And in some ways, if we actually define it as a member of the finance
Finance
committee, we
committee.
might have to make it a Brown Act too, so.
So
Well, not if it's
how
just-
about an assigned member of the board? Chair assigns somebody, I don't know.
I think a
I mean,
minimum
around-
of 2 members of staff and a member of the board of directors and permanent, and then,
Yeah.
and then it could be,
Yeah,
could be, for a capital improvement plan, we may want, the chair might say, well, I'd rather have our planning and steering committee member there, or,
Right.
I'd rather have
Sure.
my finance.
go through the
Yeah,
contract.
absolutely.
So why don't we do it that way?
Yep.
so a member
That
of
way-
the board of directors.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Just so, I just wanted to see somebody on the board that they're at the openings, so.
Okay.
I got your point.
If
It's
you
a
haven't
good
done
one.
it, it's fun.
It's a good one, and I think having it in here is great.
Yeah.
That way it's clear to everybody that that's what's gonna be there, and it wouldn't, if we just left it to the discretion of the GM, then it wouldn't be clear.
Right.
So I think keep making it clear is good.
So anything else on page 5?
Nope.
Page 6,
Yep.
go right ahead.
Insurance, before work commences, evidence of insurance. This should be required on all of them, not just, we're on major procurement. We should have, any work that's done, you should require that I think it's a state law, but I think it should state it in here that, it's required.
Is this,
So this is under,
capital improvement, though?
nobody goes back,
Where should we put it?
but isn't it under,
I didn't see it under any of the other ones, so.
No,
I mean,
but it's under methods of procurement, right? So that's the main heading is methods of procurement.
yes.
And so if you're looking at IX, I think it qualifies for all of them, doesn't it?
Qualifies for all of them.
I was gonna say, could it be lumped at the end saying like,
Or, no, it's under A, capital
It's under A,
improvement.
that's right.
It's under capital improvement projects.
mhm.
Yes, it is. Well,
So,
hold on just a second.
that might just be able to be moved then, Terry, to,
Or included,
So how about if we,
Well,
And-
it's also under maintenance and service.
is it,
Yes.
where?
Very last sentence, a copy of the certificate of insurance will be provided to the board of directors.
before work commences.
I think maybe we add on page
So
2,
we need to put it somewhere. So we
on page 2,
Okay.
under A, fundamentals and principles in the middle. Maintain procurement policy, procedure, ensure compliance with applicable state and federal laws and regulations. And then maybe a bullet there that says, and make sure all contractors have adequate insurance for doing district work or something.
Or
like
proof
that.
of insurance provided.
Yeah, proof of insurance. That way it's just kind of a catch-all for all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That work?
Well, it does, but I have a question for Director Megan.
Yes.
You want
The answer is, yeah, whatever you want.
I would like to see it have a separate bullet, and I would like to say that the insurance certificates that we have to have, them, but what about IIPPs?
What are IIPs?
I-
Let's not do acronyms.
Illness Injury Prevention Plan,
Is that a
which
required?
that is a required law for, I'm gonna say for general contractors to provide, and any of their subcontractors that work under them. That is state law. And I'm wondering
put it under the fundamental principles
if,
then.
I really feel like we need to,
It's also for those big contracts, you've gotta have safety.
that's correct,
That's
that's
all,
part of
but
the,
that's all part of that. I don't think you want that as part of this policy.
you know,
Those are gonna be part of the contract with them.
Right.
And then when you award a bid and you sign a contract, all of those elements have to be.
Have to be in it.
but on ones that aren't capital improvement, where we're not doing construction. Let's say when we hire Axner down here at the corner, what does our contract with them say? Do we require them to provide us with insurance and an IIPP?
We have an insurance cert on file.
Then they could provide that IIPP
I don't know.
for the annual insurance file too.
I would maybe just say that they have to meet, California laws for
Yeah,
insurance
we
coverage.
have that. That's why I'm saying the catch-all fundamental principles that all contractors have. Obviously, we have procurement policies and insurance compliance with applicable state and federal laws
Yeah.
and regulations. And then we just add in there that they have proof of insurance, adequate insurance.
Is that something that maybe fits better on a checklist instead of in the policy, since it's covered by state law?
Well,
State federal.
I'm telling you, when we do a capital improvement bid process, and our engineer who's being paid to do this does not have that on their list, then
We find
they're not doing their job.
Okay, so we're gonna add and,
Or just a bullet.
All contractors have proof
All-
of insurance.
Provide.
All
proof of
contractors
insurance
have
prior to the
proof of
commencement.
adequate insurance, you work for the district.
Sure.
I'm happy.
That catches all of the ones prior, between there and, page 6, number 9.
okay, about all contractors must provide
Proof of
proof of
insurance.
insurance.
Adequate.
Do we want to include prior to the start of any work?
Signing a contract.
Signing contract? Yeah, there you go. Is that necessary?
I don't know if it's necessary, but we could.
Well, we can make it consistent, so I'll just put. But I would also like to state that our insurance carrier should actually tell you what requirements and endorsements that they require. What the adequate limits are, in other words, they should be telling you.
JPIA provides that information, and they also provide insurance certificates on our behalf to a whole bunch of other folks.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so it's covered, they're gonna tell us, we
Yeah.
don't have to figure it out, is what I'm saying.
They tell us.
They
Okay.
tell us, we don't figure it out.
Moving right along,
Sounds good.
page 7.
Can I just make a quick comment?
Okay.
Yes, I know, I wanna get there too. Page 6, bottom, professional services contracts. I think at some point the district even if we wanna keep our current legal services, it should be reviewed and renewed at least every, whatever, 4 or 5 years, or whatever the number is in here. In other words, it can't be evergreen contracts.
How often are we renewing our auditors?
Well,
Reviewing.
I don't know what it was in the past, but we currently have a 5-year contract, and that's when it's done, we go out for proposals and we do it again, so.
Correct.
So,
Good practices.
yeah, on the top of page 7, or the third paragraph down on page 7, it talks about the contracts for those professional services.
Mhm.
And it says a term of no more than 36 months, and then, an extension of 24 months. So when it says professional services, yes, that's auditor, but it's also the lawyer.
Yes,
So that was my concern, was what does this mean?
but it could be the exterminator too.
Yeah.
Who does the monthly, insect remediation.
So his examples of professional services, or whoever it was, accountants, architects, attorneys, engineers, educational trainers, financial advisors, not the cleaning,
Right.
not the bug people. So,
I understand, those are the examples,
So,
but Emily's raising.
can I answer your question what it means?
okay,
So what it means is that we don't go into contract with them for any longer than 36 months. And then you're authorizing your general manager to extend that for 24 months, no greater than 24 months, because then it has to come back to the board of directors and you have to approve it going over that. It's not saying it can't go over that, but it's saying after this time frame, it must come back to the board for approval.
that's
Right.
not what it's saying. That last line says extensions of contracts valued at more than 25,000 shall be approved by the board.
Right, because that's the limit.
But
that
I don't see that saying it's coming back to us anywhere, that if we wanna extend it. So let's just talk about Rachel. And I'm sure we've had her for more than 5 years, so when I read this, it's like, oh, well, she's done then, we can't use her anymore. So if that's true, I don't even think we have do we have a contract with her?
I don't know.
No.
Do we want a contract with her? No.
I'm pretty sure we've gotta have one, it's just.
It's probably a
I've
loose
had-
contract.
Yes, and I've had a long list of things to deal with, that one is gonna be, eventually gotten to.
So maybe then, if that's your explanation, that we say that after a 5-year period, it has to come back to the board
For review.
review and approval.
Well, if the general manager doesn't want to approve 2-year extension, it's gonna come back to the board too for,
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
no.
Exactly.
I think we've gotta come up with some wording, because I think what my desire is, regardless of how good of a contract it may be, and how perfunctory providing a 24-month extension should be, nothing should last longer than 5 years without the board. Even if it's just, we're coming back with our attorney contract, it's been 9 years since the board entered into it, everybody good for another 36 months? Yay, okay, good, we'll go. But at least it's out in the community, it's out in the public, it's in a
It's in the
public.
minutes.
It's in the minutes. Otherwise, I think that should be for our engineer, I mean, it would be perfunctory, but we have an engineering firm that is our district engineer, because I'm not an engineer, we don't, so you have to, but it should.
Well, that could easily be taken care of with what's here, but extensions of the
Yeah.
contract,
Yeah.
shall be approved by the board of directors.
Well, I would just say, I don't know what kind of language you want to come up with, but extensions of the contract beyond the 5 years would need to be
With board
by the
approval.
board approval, regardless of the amount.
Extensions of contracts valued at more than 25,000
We want to get rid of
and.
How about just get rid of the 25,000?
Yeah.
If you just got rid of that, extensions of contracts, shall be approved by the board.
Well, because he only has 25,000 limit.
No, I think,
Yeah, they were
well, first of all,
talking time here.
this is assuming that that the board specifically in public entered into a contract, let's say with our attorney.
Right,
I signed the contract for 36 months.
okay,
I signed an extension for 24 months.
okay. So this.
At the end of that time, it's gotta go back to a
Right.
publicly published board meeting. And if the board says, no, we wanna go and get proposals and we do that. Otherwise, it's at least in the public and it's done in
Right.
minimum 5 years.
Okay, so extensions of contracts
Beyond 5 years.
beyond 5 years.
Shall
Well,
be approved by the board.
Yeah.
Shall be approved by the
For example, with the auditor, I think they sent out 5 proposals out, and we got 2.
Yeah,
And one was the Riccardi, who they've had for 15+ years,
right.
so,
Yes, and I would say that we'll see, I think this year's audit, this auditor's gonna show themselves to be worth what we're paying them. I mean, they're doing
So
a
do
pretty
you,
forensic job.
do you wanna use 60 months to be consistent with the months, or do you want it to say 5 years?
60 months.
60 months.
So, okay, anything else on page 7? Okay.
Because I personally, I was off track, think we do need to review our attorney.
Yeah, that's on his list.
What's
Review the attorney.
Reviewing the contract with the
Yeah,
attorney.
at some point. I think it's kind of hard though to find somebody that has
Yeah.
Water
water
experience.
experience.
It's worth reviewing and.
Yeah, oh,
looking.
absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah. Remember how hard it was just to try to find somebody to help us?
Yes.
I don't think there's any desire to make any changes, but I do think if we have an agreement that's been in active use for longer than 5 years, it should come back to you for reconfirmation.
I think she's actually only been with us for 5 years, because Walt McNeely, the prior lawyer, I think it was 2018 when they were suing the Bureau.
Oh, I think you're right,
Yeah.
yes.
So she hasn't been she worked under him, but she didn't take over till after he retired, so it may only be just 5 years, so.
Whatever, we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
And if it is, then it better get back before you pretty soon.
yeah. All right, page 8, anybody? Page 9?
Just continues aid with the definitions.
And so page 10, okay, so this one has to go to Rachel?
Yes,
Our-
we're gonna
our
take your
attorney.
edits, we're gonna send this off to Rachel. I also am gonna send a copy to our engineer, just to make sure, knowing that they're gonna be handling the bid for the big $5 million project, make sure that we didn't miss anything.
Yeah,
Is that, backwash pond? If I remember correctly, does that not include 400 meters and 6,000 linear feet of distribution pipe in that? That was the state, or was this part of Cal OES and the car fire?
I believe the Cal OES, almost $2 million portion, and the state $3 million portion is all for the backwash ponds. There's no distribution component of that.
So
There
that,
is a separate distribution grant with the state application that they are looking at, and that includes
okay.
a lot of meters and linear feet.
I'm thinking back to when they proposed adding that dollar per connection onto our bill at the Prop 218, and I thought it dealt with the backwash pond, 400 meters and 6,000 linear feet of distribution. And that was what that dollar called the state grant was for.
it was for future grants.
Yeah, and
To cover those items.
But that has nothing to do with the procurement policy.
Yeah.
No.
we'll check on that.
Right back to the procurement policy.
I think we're good on the procurement policy, we're gonna pass those on, I'll check on that. I think you're mixing them, in other words, I think it's both of the grants, the dollar was for both, but I'll check on that.
Okay.
Okay, The next one is the director's compensation expense reimbursement and required access training, recognizing that this one was previously done, a year ago. So I think, Emily, there's not really much in the way of updating it, but we did get it,
No, but there is a typing error on page 2 that was pointed out, that's been fixed by annual.
mhm. And then I think there was pointed out that we make sure the retention schedule is listed, remember, so
Yeah, I put it over there.
it's over there. And then the other thing too, on page 2, you'll notice that there's the $25 for standing committee meetings, and it should actually maybe have down below special meetings. So you can either put that there or leave it in A below. But you might notice this, what you signed today for your meetings, I added committee/special checkmark.
Okay. Now, we're updating this now, from having worked on that policy a year ago, we put a limit of no more than 2 standing committee or special meetings in any given month to be reimbursable. And I do not see that limitation in here. So I was wondering if we were changing that and opening it
Because
up.
where was that? Was
It should have been in the policy, that's what we voted on,
I never found it.
No,
okay?
it was not anywhere.
So I have in my notes that the board could, at their discretion, direct us to add that paragraph, because we did not find it.
What interesting, because that was the motion that I made.
Yeah.
Okay? The other thing is we were trying to avoid, you do have a very extensive list, and that's based off of what the law reads for director compensation for all kinds of things, including signing checks, ethics training, whatnot. And we do know that in the past, there had been a director who did not answer the phone without getting paid. Okay, and we were hoping to eliminate, but can we legally, because this is sort of the legal description of director compensation, and under the consideration that we are supposed to be acting as volunteers, and that in other special districts, the directors get no compensation whatsoever. I'm wondering if there's some way to remove the possibility, because the law does read that the max can be $500, okay, per month, okay? And I'm not sure that we are in a financial position to where we want someone who steps in and says, well, it says I get paid for doing this, I want to get paid. I'm bringing it up.
Wipe them all out, because I don't get paid nothing.
Well, I understand that. I'm trying to add us some control, you know, so that someone doesn't step in and go, oh, I can get paid for that, I might as well. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
I do, I'm just not exactly sure what you want us to do. Your $500 not to exceed is in here.
Right, but, what we tried originally to do was to set the compensation for regular board meetings at 100. It had been 150. And the standing committee meetings were $50, and I got that cut to 25. And part of the ordinance was to be a max of 2 additional meetings per month.
So in that second paragraph, Scott, where the third line down, so it says, or for each activity attended by a director. You could just put in there something, along the lines of, and no more than 2 activities,
2 additional.
Paid activity.
Yeah, 2 additional activities.
I like yours, though, Pam, paid activities.
Yeah, but then is somebody gonna come in and say, well, if I'm not getting paid, I'm not going, you know?
Well, I think what Scott was trying to partly say was like, you know, anytime we come in to sign checks, you know, we were here yesterday, we were here today,
Yeah.
there's an extra $50 right there. And we go to a conference, well, we're gonna get paid per diem if we wanted to. But if we have our ethics training or our Brown Act refresher training, sexual harassment training, that would be another $25 each time we did that.
Right.
So
So I'm trying to limit some of those expenses,
But if,
potential, so that it's not abused.
but if you limit it, I'm not arguing, okay,
I
I'm just
understand.
questioning. So, if you limit it to 2 other activities a
Right.
month, other than the general meeting, where you are serving on the standing committees, and you're coming in and you're signing checks, and maybe you have to come in and do your ethics training and not ever, whatever. Are
Right.
you going to eliminate being able to attend some of these things if you get a director that won't do it if they don't get paid?
Okay, you have a valid point, and I'm looking at it from the other standpoint, what if we get a director who wants to get paid for everything?
No, I understand that, but I think that's why you have the $500 in here to protect you.
Okay.
Is the $500
Can we?
in law?
$500 is law, we
Yeah.
cannot change that.
Max
dollar
up.
amount. Max
Can
up.
we reduce that, max,
Uh,
at our discretion as a special district?
I
Is
don't,
my question.
it's section, no.
I don't believe so.
If you read the
Okay.
water code,
Yeah, I know, and I know that's law because
Yeah.
prior to doing the changes last year, I did review the law extensively.
Right.
I would like to get a copy though, 2022-08, that ordinance regarding last year's, because I could not find it in any of my stuff at home.
Well, I do think it would be prudent to have some language in here along the lines of no more than X number additional, payments for activities listed, you know, whether it's 2 or 3 or whatever you want to do.
Because otherwise, we're being underpaid because we're not getting paid for signing checks.
We're not getting underpaid, we're not, just like with Terry.
Yeah,
we're not, we don't want it.
Exactly.
So,
Couldn't you put in something that this is a volunteer, you know, and, you know, I don't know how you word it, but,
well, don't make somebody feel guilty though, that they are taking the money too.
you know,
You know, or not taking, but earning,
Accepting,
accepting, yeah,
accepting.
their payment. So we don't wanna do that.
yeah, because wasn't Johanna living on it, basically?
That's why I extended to 2 additional, to hit
Well,
that 150
no,
mark.
nobody's living on $150 a month.
No,
but,
but it might have helped.
Sure.
I think, let's see if we can come up with some language, something along the lines, and it could be in that second paragraph.
Yeah, and you could put, for standing committee meetings or for each activity attended by a director with no more than 2 activities or meetings to be, paid for.
Should that be under that section where directors may be compensated for the following? Do we include it in there somewhere?
Well, if we can
Or
put it
up
in here,
above?
it's easy.
It's covered by that, by 2 of the activities listed in the exhibit.
Just 2 paid
Right.
activities.
Yeah, 2 paid activities, yeah.
Well,
A maximum of,
it's really 3, unless
the board meeting
is 1,
Yeah.
is, right,
2 additional,
2 additional. If you put in additional, then you should be.
well, yeah, but there are 6 listed there, so we go 2 additional.
Thank you.
That
We have to
becomes
do
8.
that right now.
All right, Emily, can you have, Director Beaver, can you restate that so that we have? This is on the second paragraph.
Second paragraph,
Page 2, second paragraph, $25 for standing committees paragraph,
yes.
okay?
For each activity attended by a director, no more than 2 activities will be paid for.
Additional.
2 additional paid activities will be reimbursed. Not reimbursed isn't the right word.
Compensated.
Compensated.
additional activities
To be compensated for.
will be compensated in a given
In a
month.
month.
In-
Yeah.
Yes.
Will be compensated. In a given month.
It already
Any month or
states
in a
that.
given month? What do you wanna say?
Given, that's more. Good point.
Clear as mud.
Pretty much.
Page 3, 5 and 6, Chair Ficus.
Okay. Hang
I have
on.
a note that says, I don't like these.
Yeah. I like it.
I didn't like them either.
Well, we needed a discussion. There's, all right, there's something lacking in that, but we'll get back, where am
And we.
What page am I on?
Page 3.
Page
Okay.
3,
I? Okay.
meals provided for business guests.
Okay. I don't like it. So, and I don't like it, it's also on the general managers. So I understand that if it's a private sector and you've got somebody that you're treating for lunch, that's necessary. This leaves it just so open to me, that why are we buying lunch for somebody? Why am I taking Emily out to lunch? Just because I want to? So this gives, there's no checks and balances here. Can I take somebody out to lunch every day? Can I go to a conference and say I'm paying for 2 or 3 people? I just, it says for business guests. Okay, you're not a business guest, Emily, you don't get the free lunch.
But I work for a private company and many, about 4 of them. And the fact is that when I went out to lunch with someone, they paid for theirs and I paid for mine. And it was, even if it was to discuss business.
Well, it's up to the board's discretion. I have them marked as the board's discretion. You wanna remove them, we'll remove them. I will just say that one of the district's protection on this is that all expenses reimbursed are going to be publicly reviewed at the time in which the regular meetings have, your consent calendar has all the expenditures and they'll be called out. So it's potential for community members to question and potentially even ridicule board members if they abuse this. But a better way to do it, if you wish, is to remove it. Just remove 5 and 6 if you want.
I agree.
But the number 6 was just too open-ended, so that was why I really don't
And
like that.
and the reason why it's in the general manager's reimbursement policy is because it's pretty much a cookie cutter version of this.
Right.
Because the general manager used to fall under the MOU and he doesn't now. So.
All right, let's remove it. Are we okay with that?
We agree with that?
Yeah.
Remove it? Gone, thank you very much.
No problem. The rest of it's kind of cookie cutter.
Okay, so page 4 for anybody? Page 5 for anybody?
Which one are we on now?
District ethics training.
Director's compensation.
Right.
Workers' compensation.
Workers' compensation.
I was in general manager's,
Oh.
No, we haven't got that far yet.
Directors.
That's okay, basic.
I know.
So on page 5, under maintenance of records,
Yes,
is Kayla considered our secretary of the board of directors?
No, the general manager is,
Oh, good,
yes.
okay. I didn't think you wanted another thing.
And anytime the board meets, that means the general manager is required to be here, it's part of his job description. It's actually in his contract.
would you like me to put in parentheses after secretary, general manager?
No, that was just my,
No.
Alright,
I reference it because the last couple of board meetings with the prior general manager, he refused to show. Anyway, that's old,
That's
it's history.
history, yeah.
So on number 4, we're on page 5 still, what I didn't like with number 4 down at the bottom, it says this policy must be reviewed and updated annually, either by the financial committee or a break-off committee assigned by the board of directors. I thought maybe,
It should say that, because we're saying it's gonna be reviewed biennial, first of all, so that's an error.
I just thought maybe we needed a commitment of what group is going to be reviewing it, whether the planning and steering, or whether the, finance committee. I just kind of thought we needed something firm.
Could it be
Well,
an
we
ad
do,
hoc?
we have it under, in indicative time for review biennial in the very front.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can just actually remove that number 4, it's biennial, it's every 2 years, I think.
Right.
I think the board, they can assign the planning and
Okay.
steering to look at it, but the board should be just making sure.
Okay, I'm
So
good with
get
that.
rid of it.
Yep. Okay, so, all right. Anything else on page 5 for anybody? Okay, page 6.
This just gets back to all those compensations, but yeah.
What I didn't like is on number 2, up at the, on the very end, it says up to 1 hour. Why?
Cause that's what was in there before.
What kind of answer is that?
I'm just being honest with you.
So we just need to get rid of up to 1 hour.
Thank you very much.
Draw a line through it.
Yeah, we don't need it, because otherwise then it's like, what does that mean? So if I'm here for 2 hours, do I get, you know? I
Yeah.
guess it just means you're gonna get compensated for 25, so it's redundant. Okay. Okay, anything else on that page? All right,
All right, we'll make some edits and we'll bring that back on the ordinance.
so, and then we fixed the,
What was your wording that you added to this? Board slash special
Right
meeting?
after, please check 1, I removed please, I said check 1, committee / special.
Okay, so it's a standing committee.
and yeah, I did that. Okay, so, we can't pass this one yet without
No,
an
that one will
ordinance?
need an ordinance and we'll have
Okay.
that for you at the next week's meeting.
All right, so general manager's reimbursement
As
policy.
mentioned before, this is new, there has not been one in the past. In some ways, you don't need one since, the appointment agreement has kind of spelled out the reimbursable activities and
Right.
things like that. On the other hand, we thought that it probably would be a good idea for fairness, openness, and all the rest, that regardless of who's in this seat, they actually have this.
Transparency.
Sure, as long as it also states in there somewhere in line with the contract for the general manager.
Yeah.
Or what about budget? Because don't we have a budget, just like the directors do, so do we need, I forgot about that. Do we need a statement in the last one and this one?
No, it's in your budget for general manager traveling, so I
Right,
can't.
it's, all we have right now, and previously the district didn't have anything, but we do have under admin, a travel reimbursable travel and stuff budget. Right now, I would say that is for the board of directors and the general manager, so if we go to a conference, we do
Right.
this stuff. I would just recommend to the board that since the district clearly wasn't tracking this in the past, that we use that to track it this year, give us experience to what we need next year. And if we need to make any amendments at the 6-month amendment, then we'll know, right?
Okay, so we don't have to say anything in these policies about,
I don't think so. I mean, I think, again, if we get down the road and we realize
Financials.
we're blowing this budget out and we can't get control of it, then we should come back to the policy and put it in there.
But if you start putting things in these policies where you're requiring him to abide by the budget as it's written today,
And it's already
then
done.
his hands are gonna be tied, and,
Yes,
you know, this way, if he goes over his budget, then we have to go back and find out why and amend it, because it's a liquid document.
yeah.
Let me make one comment. I'm under the assumption that if you have a budget, you're supposed to stay within that budget requirement. And you can't go outside of
To
it
the
without,
best of your ability, you're
without
supposed to.
approval.
You
But-
can go outside of it without approval, but then you have to figure out why.
Yeah, he's gonna have to, when he comes up, when we come in for the 6-month review, and he's $100,000 over his budget in one line item, he's gonna have to explain why.
Right.
And what are you gonna do to mitigate
Oh,
it?
man, I don't like that. I'm not acceptable to that, because the whole reason you have a budget is you are supposed to maintain that budget. You're supposed to.
If you have a budget at
That's
home and
not
all
why
of a
you have
sudden
a
your
budget.
car breaks down, you have to buy a new one, what do? You can't buy it because it's not in your budget?
Yeah.
No.
Reserve it, it's emergency fund.
You send John out to buy it.
You
Get a second job, John.
Even the
have,
government,
you have a budget so that you can
It's a
hopefully
guideline.
yeah,
see what kind of expenses you have and what kind of income you have, but it doesn't mean that you can't go outside of it.
But again, this is why, unlike in the past, we're gonna have a quarterly review. And
Yes.
at that time, I'm pretty confident that in October, when we review the first quarter, I'm gonna be able to say, oh, it looks like this portion of the budget, you know, we're probably gonna go over, we need to amend it, or this one we're gonna be under, we need to drop that down and reallocate that somewhere else.
Correct.
Before, I mean, hopefully you do it before you have any expenditure over that, but more importantly, back to if you do have a big one, like there's an emergency and you go over it, well then you gotta go and readjust your budget.
yeah.
That's
Right, well, that's it. You readjust it usually before you go over. Yes, Emily?
No, not necessarily. A reason to adjust it. yeah.
Emily,
Yeah, Emily.
Hold on a second, I was gonna say something about the budget, I really like Director Lincoln's
Thank you.
word, liquid, because it is, and normally you go back in and you try to adjust from somewhere else and move money around, but you can't always do that because you never know definitively how much income you are going to take in for that year. Now, I'm going to make the suggestion that at the bottom of page 1, which I told you is the same as mine, the last sentence where it says, expenditure should adhere to the guidelines set forth in this policy and the general manager's contract. Since you wanted to refer to his contract.
I thought we had it in there other places, but you're probably,
Okay,
that's a good idea.
that's a
It
good,
is.
that's,
I suggest on page 2, we could eliminate 5 and 6.
I agree.
Yes,
Yep.
we can, that's gone.
Yeah, just like we did the other one.
On page 3, general manager provided a brief report on the meetings attended at the next regular meeting. Mine has at expense of CCSD.
That's already taken out.
Oh,
You fixed it?
Yep, it's gone.
And under the number 4, for example, general manager should explain whose meals were purchased. Well, that got taken out with number, when we took out 5 and 6.
How many lines down is that?
There's
At the very
number
top.
4, IV.
IV.
Oh,
The second half of that section can be removed.
why am I not seeing that?
Expense reports, you see that?
Yeah, I
Must
do.
document. For
Yeah.
example, the general manager should explain
Yep, I got it.
whose meals were purchased
Okay, okay.
and what issues were discussed.
Yep.
Yada, yada, blah, blah, take it out.
Take out all the for examples?
Yeah.
No, you don't have to, yeah, whatever.
All right, anything else on page 3?
Possibly, but it may not be page 3. We're dealing with things for the future too. Does the board feel a need to, how do I put this? It's a a good question, how do I put it? Approve conferences that the general manager attends? I mean, there are probably a dozen more that our general manager could attend every year that he doesn't see a necessity to. But a different general manager might take advantage and say, look, policy says I can go to all these conferences, I get paid, I'm gonna go back and
So,
schmooze with my friends and play some golf and, you know.
As far as I'm concerned, if we have a budget for travel and there's a certain amount in there, then that is his discretion to,
Well, I agree with that
So-
part of it.
there's also a reference in his contract regarding conferences. Says conferences and seminars may include but are not limited to those sponsored by the Association of California Water Agencies, the ACWA Joint Powers Insurance Agency, ACWA-GPIA, and the California Special Districts Association, California Rural Water Association,
there you go, his contract.
But not limited to.
but not limited to. So there is a reference.
And I'm not trying to get on you, I'm trying to
No,
protect the district long
I
term.
think I know what you're trying to get at, and I think let's, the district has not had a general manager travel and reimbursement policy, so in some ways, let's get one set so that we can be clear.
Okay,
I think we may want to think about in the future, if there's anything that is not budgeted, then it has to get prior approval, regardless
I like
of
that.
that list
I
or
like
something
that.
like that.
I agree.
yeah,
You know, maybe something like that.
something like that, I
Well,
agree.
because you keep everybody well informed, and you tell, and because again, it's getting back to developing that trust issue. But, we need to spell it out, because other people might not communicate as well.
Do you wanna make an 8? On page 3?
Yeah, I think something along the lines of, you know, any travel that could, any travel with the expenses beyond the budget would need prior, board approval, something along those lines.
I think you make that 7 and then make 7,
Yeah,
8.
yeah, insert it, between 6 and
Right.
7.
Okay. But how are we gonna say it exactly?
Well, just write something down and you and I can figure it out.
Yeah, any
I
travel,
like that.
what he said was any travel beyond the budget.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well, do you wanna say, okay,
see, because here's the way I would think, and again, future folks in this seat may think differently, but my thinking is, I'm gonna think about it at one of our quarterly budget meetings, say,
sure.
hey, looks like I went to the Aqua JPIA conference, it cost that much money, the next conference and the CSDA conference is gonna go over my budget. I'm gonna ask you to authorize a budget amendment to do that travel.
Correct,
So that's basically asking the board's approval to do it.
right.
If they say, we're not gonna amend the budget for you to do the travel, then you're telling me I can't go. Okay, fine, no problem, we move on.
This is designed to protect the district long term.
Again, part of it is the district has not tracked any of this stuff for so long. I have no idea
Exactly.
what you guys have as costs.
how about any travel that exceeds the budget must have prior board approval?
Fine, good.
Okay, and again, this one has to have an ordinance?
Nope,
No, oh,
this one,
oh,
This is
okay.
brand
It's a
new.
new one.
This
brand
is
new,
new,
brand new
policy.
before.
I'm gonna suggest that based on the edits, you can approve it. if you like.
Okay, let's make sure we know all the edits.
Well, we
Took out 5 and 6.
Well, let's start at the beginning. Page 1, bottom of the page, as set forth in this policy and general manager employment agreement.
Okay, yes.
Page 2, 5 and 6 have been removed. page 3, the last sentence of IV, or number 4, has been removed, since we're no longer doing that. In 5, the expense of CCSD at the has been scratched. A new number 7 has been inserted, and it is,
Any travel that exceeds budget, the budget must have prior board approval.
and now the old 7 is number 8,
Yes.
and it is now, those are the amendments.
Okay,
Yes.
do I have a motion?
I move that we accept this new general manager reimbursement policy with its adjustments, corrections, additions, changes, there you go.
And I ask that you adopt it, not accept it.
Adopt, there you go, I like that.
Thank you.
I second it.
So we have a motion to adopt this policy with the changes that were made, and a second. That was by Director McVeigh, and a second by Director Beaver. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Motion carried? Okay,
Okay, the next one is the employee, travel guide and reimbursement policy. I think we fixed a couple of little edits, like on page 3 at the bottom, there was a extraneous O there, so meal reimbursement should not be claimed for meals that are to be provided by the conference or event. At the end of page 4 at the bottom, if the general manager was the one traveling, blah, 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 we're just gonna remove that. Shouldn't be part of that. Emily just walked out the door. She's tired of this.
It's only 2 hours, we're doing good.
I will just remind the board, this one was previously approved in 2000, so 23 years ago. So, yeah. So it was done by an ordinance, 2000-5, so,
Why is this one done every 3 years and all the rest of them are biannual?
she's not here.
She has no answer for you.
That's my question. Really got me second.
Yes. All right. Anything else though on page 1?
nothing on page
If
1.
these weren't in the MOU, I would say this is pretty low.
Yeah, but they are in the MOU. The meal costs?
Yes, to control costs.
Yeah.
I know, but you will find it $10 breakfast.
Yeah.
The state only gives you 7.
Yeah.
Easy.
Denny's.
$6.99.
Bagel, yeah, bagel and cheese.
Plain, no bread, no cream cheese.
Oh, yeah, no cream cheese. I will just mention to you though that this, I'm gonna take the opportunity to extol the virtues amongst all of its other warts of the MOU. Previously, the employees could choose to not take their lunch and take it as overtime
Yes.
while they were traveling. So that was an easy call, right? You know, overtime is more per hour than a $15 lunch. So they can't do that.
So that may be a question for next week, if we provide meals for employees when they're at a repair. Why are we paying them for that meal time?
So Emily, my question was, is why we won't review this every 3 years when everything else is biannually?
That was Paul's suggestion.
Threw him under the bus, I like it.
All right, make it 5 years. No, I do remember now, 3 years is how long the MOU is.
Oh,
There you go.
that's why.
Yeah, I kind of forgot.
Yeah, that's a really good reason to have it in 3.
Yep.
Well, on page 3, I still don't understand with your answer. If you take a look at page 3, number 5, it says all reimbursements will be made on a petty cash form. and paid in cash or check to the employee after approval. So occasionally, we will have employees that will be traveling, maybe to Sacramento for some kind of training or something, and they may have overnight stay. Why are we paying that on a petty cash form? That just makes no sense to me whatsoever.
So when that happened,
Yeah, go ahead.
they filled out the same form that was attached to
Travel
these last
reimbursement.
two things, reimbursement. That form gets filled out, and then it gets attached with all the receipts to petty cash form.
And then they're paid in cash or check,
Or
most
check.
likely check,
But
Yeah.
like
to
the
the
check,
employee after it's been approved.
Right.
We don't
So-
do advances though.
No, no. So it is a little confusing because that form is called a petty cash form. It's the same as you would use if you were doing a standard petty cash thing, which is we ran down and bought waters for the guys that are working, you run back in, you fill out a petty cash form, attach a receipt, get it approved, and somebody hands you back $12 or whatever it costs.
But
But
most of the petty cashes in here are actually really a check.
Yeah.
But,
Oh,
but
so-
that's the form that they use.
So all it's saying is, now I read it,
Mhm.
all reimbursements. That's not saying that the request is on it, it's just saying all reimbursements, the payment of it will be made that way.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And
Okay.
all
Are you
of the-
happy?
And all of this petty
That's a
cash,
stretch.
and all of those petty cash forms get filed under petty cash in a folder, not under the individual's name. So if you're looking for something, that went to an employee, or you have a question or whatever, it's all just in that folder and in the payables under petty cash.
But if they have a travel sheet that they've actually filled out, it's gonna be filed differently, right?
It's gonna be attached to that,
Yeah,
it'll be
it'll
with
be
the
attached to it.
receipt,
Okay.
they'll all be together.
It's just it's a tracking form and.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it could very well include their credit card payment for hotel.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right,
all right, so let's see,
again, on page 4, I just said.
I'm on 3 yet.
oh, you're on 3,
I'm
so
sorry.
everything,
Oh,
sorry.
Under mileage reimbursement,
Mine aren't numbered, so give me a second here. Okay, yes?
are they just going on if they wanna take their own car, if they're assigned a vehicle? Shouldn't they be taking the company vehicle?
Well, I think this is to cover if they go to Sacramento for one of their training items. I think we'd rather have them take their own vehicle and reimburse them the mileage.
Why? Isn't it cheaper to take a company vehicle?
Think of the liability issue.
Gas.
I would say gas.
We still have liability, we still have liability if they're in their own car.
Yeah, but I think these trucks,
Get like 12 miles a
right,
gallon.
as opposed to somebody's vehicle.
Yeah, I think you'd be paying more in gas than you would be just paying the 65.5, I think,
Cents per
cents
mile.
per mile.
How much is it?
It's 65.5 or
Yeah,
something like that, cents per mile.
Changes all the time.
I just had a question on it.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I didn't want to win that one or lose it.
Are you happy? Are you happy?
Well, I will say though that we have not had, and I don't think the district has had, I'm encouraging my folks to start looking for training opportunities. And I think some of them are gonna be in Reading, and we're gonna send them in their truck. But that's something I can just say,
Right.
no, just take the truck to Reading. But if we find something for them elsewhere, I think we need to have this in there, so that.
Okay.
So we're taking off the last line, correct, on page 4?
Wait a minute.
We're taking off the last line, what?
On
If the
page
journal
4.
entry
Oh, I'm
was
sorry.
Oh,
for
yeah,
information.
that's already off in the
Okay,
computer.
I had a question on,
That was before the general manager's one of them.
Yes, sir.
lodging costs,
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
Mention it.
Okay,
shouldn't all lodging costs be by the government rate?
no, because we're not really government, we're semi-quasi.
I was gonna say each state facility
Well, and,
has a different pay rate.
Did it say in the, director one, that we had to do government rate?
No,
No.
it didn't.
Someplace I got that.
And I don't think you could, saying the most economical lodging is a good way of taking care of different areas have different prices depending on what the area is like.
Well, that's what government does, if you're doing government rate, it takes into account.
In a parking lot.
No,
Sleeping for a couple hours, then driving.
Well, what really caught my attention was on the, employee one that said you should, typically the employees will stay at a conference host hotel.
Ooh.
My opinion, my experience was that they like to get some high-priced hotels for those conferences.
Mine's not, mine is where they've always tried to.
What?
Oh,
yeah, they usually.
They get a special rate for
Well,
the
I was
conference.
just
We
gonna
used
say,
to-
even when they're at the expensive ones, they get a special rate if you're in the conference.
Yes.
We used to go to the casinos and they wouldn't give us a special rate, we had to find a motel close by. Cause the special rates that they gave.
The one that Paul attended just recently, or last month or 2 months ago, the hotel rates were, what city were you in?
Monterey.
Monterey?
Wow.
Oh,
You would
Monterey's
think, you would
expensive.
think it was, no, they got a wonderful rate.
Yeah.
So,
Well, some of them do, but, if it's exorbitant, I don't think we should have, that the employees will stay at the hotel.
Well, that's why it says the most economical.
I think we're covered here a little bit, and this one's a tough one, because you don't want it to be so restrictive that they can't go. But I think the other thing too is, if we ever have a situation in which we send one of our employees to one of these conferences or training, the general manager will have some oversight, because we have in here authorization, travel, general manager can review that, and that's where you do that review of like,
yeah, you'll know ahead of time if it's a
hey,
conference.
the conference hotel's charging $275 a night, I can pull up hotels.com and there's 125 right next door.
Yeah, Monterey, Seaside, big difference, and only 8 miles apart.
And that's what I did on your behalf to the Monterey one, so I was able, yes, they have a really good rate, I even found a better rate right next door to another hotel, I booked it early.
Okay, so we can't, any other questions on this employee travel guidelines?
Now, can we vote on this one?
No, we cannot by ordinance.
No, unfortunately, that one was by ordinance, so
All right,
We'll bring that next
surplus property disposal.
okay, this one was also approved by ordinance on June 15th, 2011. So again, 12 years ago. This one's updated again, there's, I believe, Emily, you can speak to this, you found some examples from other districts that we used on this
Which
one?
one are we doing?
Surplus.
Surplus.
Sorry.
Sorry, I was making some notes.
And this one, just for the board's purposes, is to make sure that we actually have a policy as it relates to whatever we may surplus, be it those, remember during the drought, the board decided for $75, we'd sell those plastic tanks.
Right.
People needed them, but the policy wasn't great, so Bill would come to the board and said, what do you think about that? And that's what they did.
Right.
So this just provides some of that.
So do we have a list of, first of all, inventory, so that you can determine what is surplus?
No.
Well, now, wait a minute.
We do have a inventory list, that needs a complete review and update. And so what we're instituting here over time is all inventory of materials necessary for repairs and other things. All tools. It's pretty clear lately that the district has not paid attention to all the tools on its trucks. And in many cases, they're either no longer there, or they've lost they're no longer their useful life. So we're gonna be putting together inventories. Now we know we go through that, and when a crowbar becomes too old to be used anymore, we replace it and we can surplus it. So there's just some things like that. So I would say this is what we actually can do.
I'm inventorying my husband's garage.
Yeah. When you're done with that, you might want to help out here, but go ahead.
So I wanna point out that the date on here is an error, that it's actually June 15th, 2011.
Not October 11th,
No,
June what, 15th?
June 15th, 2011,
Okay.
and it's ordinance 2011-04. Did you do the last page? The very last page, second paragraph, item in a public meeting prior to sale. Well, I would like to go back and make a comment about what you just stated. So, I believe that the district should be filing a business statement with the county, and I don't remember if it's yearly or not, and on that, you list your equipment, which includes computers, trucks, tools, the whole 9 yards, and it is supposed to match your GL and your depreciation schedule. So,
Put that on your priority
you
list.
might wanna ask Melissa about that.
We do not have that. So we are working on that. That's all being processed.
Wow.
We used to get hit on it on audits all the time.
How have we not just been?
Taken over by the state.
So look,
They don't want us.
Well,
if
the
you
county
look
and the state
at the-
both, I can't believe that the county hasn't come
If-
down on us. Wow.
if you look at the FY 21 and the soon FY 22 budget, you will see an inventory amount, and there are elements of that inventory. It's just not as up to date as it possibly can be. I cannot find where the district has made any county report
Ever.
Okay.
recently.
But at the same time, when I spoke to Nolda Short, which was the auditor of the county, they really have no control of us as being a special district. The only control they have, what she said was because they pay our property tax, they give us a portion of the property tax. There is some control there, but they had to have a problem like with our bookkeeping or that's why they needed the audit. That's all they review is that audit, and if there's no big glaring things.
Wow, okay, that's interesting.
So this one, again, unless you have anything major in here, it's pretty standard boilerplate. It's really before we actually even do anything, because we still did a lot of stuff we gotta comply with before we could even go this route.
I would make a recommendation that if like this one that's really simple, if we've got 2 days, I don't know if that's too much to put on the agenda for next week. We have some real simple ones that,
This one is scheduled to be on next week's agenda.
oh, well, there you go, you're ahead of
The
me.
only thing I'm doing right now is trying to edit an ordinance
Okay.
to do it.
So, with Shannon being as successful as she is getting our delinquent, accounts coming in, would there be any way that this could be a project for Shannon?
What?
The inventory stuff, I don't know, this is really more the responsibility of our distribution, folks and Melissa really because of the bookkeeping aspect of things.
Yeah.
There's some elements that we're all gonna help out with,
Kudos, and she's wonderful to talk to on the phone.
They all
They all are.
You will, it's so much nicer than what it was.
I'm gonna give you a bigger report later, but in case there's members of the community and the board that don't know, 10 days ago, we sent out 250 delinquent notices. On Monday, we started tagging places that had not yet paid based on that delinquent notice with shut-off notices. This has made it a madhouse here. And Shannon still is as bubbly as ever answering the phone. And I've spent 2 hours each of the last 2 days talking to irate customers who, after talking to Shannon and Kayla, were not that irate because they were all middle down, right? Just round figures, over $20,000 have come in just in that short period of time. Of that, 5,000 or 6,000 notices from WEWAP, the Payment Assistance Program. And we were worried that the Payment Assistance Program people were gonna call us and chastise us for sending so many people their way. But instead, as Kayla can report, they called and said, we actually have funding, so send them our way.
Great.
And our second highest owing bill for $7,620 some odd dollars. We got a call today from the LEWAP saying they were gonna pay that bill for that customer.
Unbelievable.
All
right,
trespassers,
trespassers.
another one.
So we can't do anything with surplus property?
No.
Because it's an ordinance.
It'll come back next week. Same thing
Do
with
we have
this.
any excess property?
Huh?
Before we go on, do we have any excess property?
He doesn't have a list?
I don't believe we currently can state yes or no.
There's some keywords and, computer messes that need to be.
Okay, when I say
And-
property, I'm
and
sorry,
treasures and-
I'm talking about land.
No.
No, land?
Is that also on
Yeah, it's there.
the statement that you file with county?
Yeah, that you do have to do something very particular with land, and you gotta go through the Surplus Lands Act. And you gotta offer it to other municipalities and schools and everything else before it can be offered to the private sector.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Yeah, but I don't think we do, at this point, have any of that available. So trespassers, I believe this was part of a previous, policy.
Right.
So the previous policy included trespassers and workplace violence. So workplace violence is part of the MOU and part of the handbook. So this needs to just be a separate, very short little standalone policy. But it was approved by ordinance in January of 2018. So again, this is another one that I'm working on, an updated ordinance for next week.
And that 20 is the wrong date, it's actually 17. And it's ordinance
Splitting hairs.
2018-01.
And do we have signs up?
That was my question too.
Yeah, we got that question. We do, but I believe this is something that is a yearly maintenance opportunity by our staff to go out and make sure. I know I just checked recently, we have them on our wells down on the south end of town, and there's one at the south booster station. There's one that's not very visible on the north booster station. So those are things that we definitely want to update.
And does Bill check the water filter plant?
Treatment plant is very well marked.
Any questions on that one?
Can I just make a comment, since this one is, the previous one and this one refers to property? I believe that the board should have a conversation soon about a district facility maintenance. You know, we we turned off the water sprinkler system on this facility before my time for the drought. Very appropriate to do it. Basically kind of made the decision, even though we're not in a drought, not to turn them on yet. But I think we should probably have something that says, you know, when we're not in a drought, we're gonna water our yard. Now, there's perception issues with that. The state may come in and say, well, that's not practicing good water conservation and whatever else it might be. I'm just bringing it up as part of this one, but not for our conversation. But just
You've also got to mow it.
we gotta
Yeah,
mow it, we
but
got a
you-
lot of other things we gotta do. On the other hand, I'd rather it be green than brown, but then again.
I don't think that we need to approve that, I just think that needs to be something that's just done. Just common sense of, yeah, in your drought, you cut back, and otherwise you take care of your.
Do we have any money in the budget to trim the dead parts of the trees?
No, but PG&E is gonna take down 3 trees that are basically dead.
Okay, will serve letter policy.
Okay, according to super volunteer Emily, we had a basic practice on will serve letters, and it's an exhibit A is a current application, and we also have a exhibit B, which is an example of what the district has done in the past as it relates to will serve letters, but we've never had a policy. So this would be setting a will serve letter policy. I think, which district did we grab there? Centerville had a pretty good one, actually. So I believe Chair Fickus had page 2, number 8, that, what did you have on that?
Well, it was said, it will suspend the issuance of will serve letters when the sum total of the estimated yearly usage of all outstanding will serve letters and the estimated yearly usage of current CCSD customer reaches 100%. And I just didn't know what that meant. Are we talking about like a drought, or we reach over 15,000 acre feet of water? What does this will, because will serve is somebody doing a subdivision, right? Is that what it?
Or a home,
Or,
right, or a business.
so it just says CCSD will suspend the issuance of will serve letters when the sum total of the estimated yearly usage of all the letters and the estimated yearly usage of current customers reaches 100%
Of available water.
of available water.
Right.
Should probably say contract water.
You know, but available water changes annually. And this would enable you to not issue a will serve during a drought where everybody was on tight restrictions, potentially. If we were strictly on well water,
Like, we might wanna get rid of some McConnell water that we draw or something, and that would fall under available water as opposed to contract,
yes.
right? Wouldn't be ours.
Okay,
She got it. What page? Yeah.
I'm fine with leaving it as is.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification. I wasn't quite sure what we were talking about.
Yeah, on page 3, number 4, the will serve letter will terminate at the sooner to occur for 5 years after the date, and there was in parentheses 15 years, so we will edit that to 5.
Yeah, it's already corrected.
Yeah, putting it on the record. Page 4, also in accordance to the charges and schedule rates. I believe we've already fixed that
Yeah,
too.
number 6 that went out, and it says most current schedule of rates and fees, so we don't have to change that every year.
Did I put the wrong page number on that?
We're on page 4, correct?
Number 4, yeah. I must have.
That's all right, so it's page 4, number 4, at the very end of number 4, it says schedule of rates, and we changed that to the most current schedule of rates and fixed
You're
fees.
good.
No, I was on
Yeah,
page
I'm
3.
too.
The problem was I was on page 3.
Oh, okay. fault.
No, my fault.
Right after that,
Applications,
there was a
typo.
typo for will serve letter, so it should say application for will serve letter,
Yep, and that's
not
already,
application.
yep, and
So-
it's already
Oh,
fixed.
it's
So,
fixed.
so the ordinance though, or the date of April 23rd for this capacity charge fee, that is correct, which I don't think it is. Or is it the 2020 or 2017?
The November 2017 one?
Remember, let me see what I said. Page 4 says 2023, and page 8 says November, I went out of order, November 2017.
And so both of those are correct. Because it's off of our rate fee schedule
When,
so we have two lists, okay? We have that spreadsheet that you were looking at, but then they also have another list here in the office that they use.
but I don't believe in April that we approved any capacity charge fees, nor even discussed it.
No.
Wait a minute, where are you seeing?
Page 4.
Page 4, number 4, so we've already changed that to,
Oh.
instead of schedule of rates effective April 15,
Yeah,
2023,
check it out.
the most current schedule of rates and fixed fees.
Okay.
Correct.
And so what that does is, you're right, we only do rates in April 23. The fixed fees have not had an updated Prop 218, like study and reinitiation. So those go back to the most recent connection fee rates, which you're saying is November 15, 2017?
I don't know when I.
So here's what I recall reading. It says in an ordinance, it says we don't have to do a Prop 218 because these are not water, so these are not property related fees. So therefore, the capacity charge fees are based on equipment, I think, and so they have not been doing a Prop 218 or ever have. So they were approving capacity charges almost yearly. So, and that just takes a little bit of going back to the ordinances and reading
Okay,
them,
so I just did that,
okay?
and I just corrected what it said out front, I don't remember now what the date was, do you? I put it in your draft.
That's okay, so
That's
just,
all right.
just in generalities.
But, yeah. So on the form that they use in the office, okay, one half of the page shows certain fees, and then these and it has a date effective, is April 15, 2023. And then on the right-hand side of the page, it has some more fees, and then down at the bottom, it has the capacity charges, okay?
Okay.
And the date that was on there was incorrect. I think it was 2015, and I found where they had updated it in 2017. And so I corrected that for Kayla, but those have not been looked at since then.
And these don't include then the installation charges
So,
for installing the meter.
So are we talking about the
so I believe
capacity?
it's 2019, I believe.
I think you're correct, that sounds
So-
more correct.
Because that is what it said there, but when I researched it, I got down 2019-06, which I believe was like October 16th or something of 2019. I'm not sure. Kayla has it in her basket
Okay.
now.
Okay, moving along. Where are we? We did page 4.
Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
so good.
Okay.
We fixed that heading. was thinking I would like to have this approved tonight, but I think we better make sure we have the right date for these connection fees. I believe that these cannot be updated until we've, done a rate study, but there may well be some of these that could be updated.
Well, yeah, that's the statement on the ordinance, that doesn't mean it's correct, that's just what they said,
Yeah.
so.
I am pretty convinced that the connection fee, since it's a property fee, has to be in a 218 update.
Oh,
Yeah.
those dirty dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, but, yes, I should have thrown that up there to you. On the other hand, the will serve letter, the annexation fees, the lot engineering and inspection fees, the job estimate fees, actually, I think we could probably update that on a yearly basis.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, that's what they were doing, that's what they were doing. I have one question.
Well, I'd sure like to get rid of the 81 cents.
Yeah.
Aw.
Well,
Sounds like
that's,
fry.
because see, they were doing that every year, 1.9%, whatever percentage, and so that's what they did. I have a problem with our connection fees, so just put that in the back of your thing, that we can have a discussion on that. A 1-inch meter for somebody to build out here, we are not encouraging anybody to come out here and build a home, charging them $20,000 for a meter. And I just don't know what the actual costs are, so I would like to see some kind of comparison of what it really costs us to do that. If it's 20,000, then by gosh, it's 20,000. It
But that's
just,
a capacity charge.
no.
But yes, it is. It
Yeah.
does not include installation.
Mhm.
Well, I'm calling it a connection fee.
Okay,
It says connection fee.
fine. But if you take that 3/4, you can expect another $6,000 to $8,000 for the install of that meter.
It just is high. We're not garnering people out here. Why, when they see that, I can build, you can dig a well for $20,000 a lot of times, and so people are more apt to try to do that. So anyways, just food for thought.
Again, since that is tied to property, I would assert that should be part of a rate study to justify those costs,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Awesome.
that's what you're saying.
Yep,
It
that's
may
what I'm
come
saying.
back to say it's 20,000,
Yeah,
but in other words, you have to do it. And there's an element to the cost of the system, and you're basically purchasing capacity for your 1-inch lines.
yeah.
That might be close.
It might.
So with will serve, we're not able to vote on that tonight.
No.
Actually, we could, huh? 'Cause there's
Well,
one-
you said the date. We were concerned about the date.
Yeah, I'd kinda like, let's,
I can tell you that I went,
let's fix it, we'll bring it back.
Okay, so we're moving
I
on.
did research.
Okay.
Delinquencies in water service disconnection.
It's the last one.
And it's taken a lot longer than we had thought. Yeah. Not, but you were right.
Can I be up first?
You're up first.
Okay, so, just to give you a history here, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 examples, okay? 2 of which were identical, and so pretty much we boilerplated it. And that was Centerville and Georgetown. So literally, Paul was able to give me a copy. And I took that, pasted it into a document, and then went through and, put CCSD and, whatever, board of directors, whatever. But basically, there are other policies out there that are absolutely identical to this. So, I'm hoping that we can
So,
agree to it so that because these girls are in the process of this process.
so basically, page 2, you have your delinquency charge service not payment. So, there is a section on non-residential service, which is shorter, it's only 30 days versus 60 days for residential. You have your 7-day termination for non-residential service. Again, this is a business or something that's out there that doesn't pay, or ag only, right? It's ag only. And then page 3, you have just continuation of residential service for non-payment, so you got your 60-day, you're mailing things on the 21st, you got unbalanced assessment of late fees, you got your subsequent month, and then the 5th of the month, after the 5th of the month of that 60-day, your notice of termination happens. Get your written notice. We have a little section in here about good faith effort by the district. We also have alternatives, so deferred payment plan. Currently, we are sticking to only 12-month payment plans. We could do 24, we could do 18. Right now, they're nightmares with our current system, but with our future system, they'll be a lot easier. One of the things that we found in the current, and Kayla can talk a little bit about it, is that because we have a binder that has all these payment plans in them, sometimes people come in and make a payment, they put it into the computer and don't know that they have one in there. But one of the other things we found out is there were only 7 that were current, or whatever the number was, and everybody else had missed payments, so they should have been on the disconnect months ago. We do have a alternative payment schedule, like I said, and one of the things we've had a good relationship with is LEWAP, so we have other alternatives for people that I think have given them great relief, that they're no longer under the gun of not paying. We have a special conditions section on page 6, medical certification. Before I get to that, so obviously they can appeal to the general manager. If they don't like it, they can come to you on the board. We have financial elements of things under the medical certification. This is, I think, boilerplate from our other folks. I think right now, this still has more reconnection of discontinued. This is where on page 8I, we have our reconnect fees. I think part of what we have to do subsequent to this, as Emily said, is get that stuff updated, but this is what we have for now. That's about it. I will just say that like I said before, we sent out 250 delinquent notices, and we've been putting out these really beautiful door hangers that are so loud people can't miss them. And we've been getting lots of calls and lots of payments, and it works.
I had a question on page 3.
Yep.
Under residential service delinquency timeline. Explain this to me, what you mean by bills are mailed on the last day of the month and are due by the 5th of the subsequent month. What do you mean by that?
So when you mail a bill on June,
When you say you mean the district?
the district mails our bill, sends our bills out, and we drop them in the mail on June 30th. They're due by July 5th.
To the customer?
No,
That's what that's saying, though.
That's not true.
that's not true, that's right.
It's 20th.
Yeah, the 20th.
No,
Yes, they have till the 20th to pay.
they have till the 20th to pay it.
But this is the delinquency
This is the
timeline.
delinquency, okay?
Yeah, the
So-
On the
delinquency
21st
timeline.
of the following month, the unpaid accounts are assessed a late fee on all unpaid amounts,
Okay, so on the delinquency.
okay?
So when you say a bill are mailed out, what do you mean by that? Are you talking a regular bill or a delinquency bill? So if a delinquency bill is mailed on the last day of the month, so you're giving them 30 days to pay it,
No,
are due by the 5th of the subsequent month.
So they're already behind. Okay, that's all.
It basically sends a 5-day notice
5-day notice.
Yes, the 5
And if you
days.
mail it and it goes from here
Yes.
to Anderson to Reading to Sacramento, they may not get it in 5 days.
They'll get it in a day.
Bills are mailed on the last day of the month and are due by the 5th of the subsequent month. Okay, I would rather say the.
Well, wait a minute.
I think we just need to take that completely out. I don't think that has anything to do with the delinquent, because the delinquents are supposed to be printed the 21st.
No, but this is the timeline, so that first one under A, did you girls ever look at this and go over it?
No, because we've been busy doing.
Okay, so bills are mailed out on the last day of the month and are due on the 20th of the subsequent month, so that should say 20th.
Okay.
Okay, so you're giving them 20
And
days.
on
Well, that's what our normal bills are. You get it at the
Exactly.
1st of the month or,
Right.
and pay it by the 20th.
And on the 21st of the subsequent month, the unpaid balances are assessed a late fee. Okay?
Yep.
Bills for the subsequent month are mailed on the last day of that month, which includes the past due amount from the previous month,
Mhm.
including the late fee and the current charges. And a first notice of delinquency is printed on the bill.
You got a period there after charges.
I'm sorry, what?
There's a period after
Yes, there
charges,
is.
yeah.
All right,
Okay,
and then that notice is actually printed on the bill. That's the first notice of delinquency, okay? Now, this is where I need your help, because I don't know what happens after that.
But you're stating,
Now, because they are,
Delinquent.
they're delinquent,
It's
30
due,
days.
right, then it's due by the 5th of the
Then it's
month.
due by the 5th?
they may not have time.
Bills for the subsequent month are mailed on the last day of that month, which includes the past due for the previous month.
Or is it due on the 20th?
What does the delinquency note on the bill say, do we know?
It doesn't say,
It doesn't?
it just, you accrue the, 1.5%, but they either pay it as soon as they can, or they pay it with the next bill that comes out.
On the 20th.
I guess you have to decide if you're gonna, what that first delinquency notice is gonna say on the bill, I guess. If you're gonna say they have to pay it by the 5th because they're already 30 days late.
But it wouldn't make sense because on number D, it says on the 21st of the following month, so then we're going back to the old
Just
schedule.
20, yeah.
So the, up there due by the 5th needs really to be changed to the 20th.
Except that it's already dated, so I don't know that do we even need that sentence in there? What happened, we'll fix that.
All right, I'm gonna suggest that we punt. Because if my staff hasn't had a chance to look at this,
Yeah.
we need to have them look at it.
The girls, but they were
I
too
would
busy.
also ask that you go back and look at our template, because I think we've got a few bullet points that may have been in here that are extraneous. In other words, they're kind of duplicative and confusing.
Yeah,
And then we'll bring this back.
thank you.
Good.
We can't wordsmith this right here without.
Well, our old ones, so
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not sure what our old ones say, to tell you the truth.
All right, so is there, any comments from the board?
Because it was not.
Not me.
Any comments from Caitlin? Emily?
Nope.
Paul?
Yes.
The girls know about this.
Just because this is a planning and steering committee meeting, special meeting, one of the other aspects of the planning and steering is capital improvement plans, other plans, and so we are still starting to work on that. Bill is actually working on some ideas on what a treatment plant, capital improvement plan, 5 and 10 year would look like. I've also got some other frameworks and stuff like that. Just because that's the committee meeting we're having right now, I want to make sure I mention that. Otherwise, let's adjourn.
Okay, and and it is, my watch is dead, I'm out of